Captain, you have an Alpha priority communication from Starfleet Command.
Someone called Shinzon has requested a Federation envoy.
I can't fight what I am.
Yes, you can. I'm a mirror for you as well.
Not for long, Captain. I'm afraid you won't survive to witness the victory of the echo over the voice.
You heard it up top. We are boldly going once more, but sadly, for this generation, one last time. Because we're talking Star Trek Nemesis here on Normies Like Us with your hosts, Colin before.
All right, I'll be Mike Remus. I hate the sunlight.
Oh, wow.
There you go. Yeah. And Normies, for the last time, it's Captain Jean-Luc Picard at your service.
And you shaved your head for this episode, Jacob. It looks
Incredible.
great.
That's right. That's right.
Yep. And we're doing the final one, the Nemesis. Shinzon, I am you, Jacob, too. Hosting also the same, a mirror of your hosting ability, right?
That's right.
Yeah, final Star Trek TNG movie. It's weird to kind of get here, especially after Picard Season 3 feeling like a long TNG movie, but up to that point, this is kind of the last ride for all these TNG, cast members. 2002.
You know what? I liked that we just saw Picard Season 3 because there were some references in this movie that kind of tie it all together for me, and I really like that. So
yeah,
I'm excited to talk about it.
For sure.
Do they say the words Shinzon in Picard Season 3?
I don't think so, but there's some other references which we can get into.
We'll get into.
I did have one son. Are you familiar with Shinzon? Of Venus, of course.
Yes, the Nosferatu planet. My favorite Star Trek planet.
Exactly, the Nosferatus. Of course, we're talking Star Trek Nemesis, the fourth movie in the TNG movie franchise, fourth and final. Because this movie did terribly at the box office and ended any talk of a fifth movie that there was some talk. It was kind of left open-ended when they made this movie that they could do another one. But the box office, really bad. I'll just give you the numbers. 67 million worldwide on a $60 million budget. Now compare that. I don't know if we mentioned the numbers of the other movies previous to this one, but Insurrection did 117 million. So from 117 million to 67 million worldwide.
Right.
That's pretty bad. And all the other ones they did over 100. First Contact 145 million. So yeah, pretty bad.
So at least box office, the weakest performer for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the general reputation of this one is that it's the worst TNG movie. I don't personally agree with that, which we'll get into. For me, it's actually my second favorite of the four.
I don't like
the
these
top
takes.
half.
Yeah,
hold on. I want to stick with box office because let's do our histories. I will say my own personal history with this film. Jacob, I contributed to that box office. Of course, this continues my legacy of seeing Star Trek films in theaters, and I specifically remember going to this one with my father and leaving, and both of us saying, "Oh, that's right. Star Trek movies are bad. That's sort of what they are." It's interesting that this one follows in that fashion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the general consensus. Mike, what's your history with this movie?
I've only seen it like one time ever. Before this, maybe 10 years ago, when I went through all the movies for the first time, and then I thought it was confusing and boring. And mostly confusing then, and it's confusing and boring kind of now. But it's like it has some charm. It's not all bad, but I don't think I like it very much. But we'll get into
Amazing.
That's fair.
Well, now hold on. Even before we do, Jacob, your history with this film in particular, I definitely want to hear when you saw this for the first time. Let's remind the listeners. Now, we've done a lot of Star Trek episodes. We've been doing this long form series of watching these films. Right, we're on fucking number 11 here. This is incredible. Yes. Jacob, in the past in particular as well, you also made us do a Tom Hardy episode on this podcast. So I know in particular, let's point out in your past that you are a big Tom Hardy fan, my friend.
That's right. Normie Nation out there, you know it. I've mentioned it before. Tom Hardy, you know, the greatest actor of all time, in my opinion.
Cinema
Wow.
darling.
Yeah, and we did an entire episode featuring Tom Hardy. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited to talk about this one, because of course Tom Hardy, before he was really a known commodity, kind of breaking out, one of his first movie roles in this movie. So I'm super excited to talk about it.
So when did you see it, and were you already aware of who Tom Hardy was when you saw it for the first time?
No, absolutely not, because I saw this, in the mid 2000s. I didn't see it in theaters, but I do remember catching it at some point. Probably I rented it or something. I don't really remember, but and I wasn't as familiar with, like, I knew what TNG was, the show, but I wasn't familiar with it necessarily in the movies. Even though, like, I saw First Contact and Insurrection before that, so I knew they made movies, but I had no, like, I wasn't a Star Trek fan like I am now. So very different experience. And it's not a great movie. Not gonna make that claim.
Right.
But again, it's a pretty low bar when you're talking about the TNG movies. Do I think it's worse than Insurrection? No, I actually don't. I would rather watch this again than Insurrection. So, and we'll get into it later.
I won't answer that until the end of the episode. You'll have to listen all the way through. Yeah. But it's an interesting thought. I'm just happy that between last week with Charlize Theron and this week with Tom Hardy, I get my Fury Road power couple back to back.
That's right.
That's one of my movies that anybody
Tom
gets
Hardy,
a pass. Yeah.
Yeah. Mad Max, Bane, Eddie Brock, Shinzon.
Yeah. Name a more iconic trio.
You just listed the iconic characters of our lifetime. Yeah,
That's
of course.
That's right.
Yeah.
So of course, this movie came out in 2002. Now, the early 2000s was a very interesting time that we all lived through, kind of our coming of age. We're becoming teenagers at this point, preteens to teenagers. This movie feels very early 2000s, even compared to the first three TNG movies. Would you say that? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
We've said so much about, like, models being used versus CGI effects. We'll get into it, but boy, again, it's so interesting to see one of these where you're like, oh yes, the 2000s, like exactly what you said, where I'm sitting there like, yes, I'm home, here we are.
Yeah, we're between X-Men 1 and X-Men 3 for your Patrick Stewart update. X-Men 1 came out in 2000, and then this came out in 2002.
Wow.
And
3,
a certain director may have a cameo in this movie.
I don't like hearing that.
Oh, no.
Yes.
No. I like it even less. Okay.
Yeah. But this movie, like you said, all CG at this point. The models have been phased out. And this is with the shows, too. So at this point in the shows, Voyager had ended. Enterprise was just starting. A show that wasn't super well liked at its time. I know Mike's a big fan. I like Enterprise, but it wasn't the most beloved at the time. I think it's definitely seen as better than, like, Discovery now, but I think it's sort of gotten a reappraisal over the years. But this is where we are in the Star Trek universe. We got Enterprise in this movie effectively ending this era, and after this it would be the Kelvin timeline reboot. Right?
You have a long break, and there's been a lot of Star Trek on TV, right? We're coming out of Deep Space Nine, Voyager, TNG was off air for a while, but there's been a lot of Star Trek going on. But maybe it's a good time to jump in, and we can give us the history of, how did this come to become the end of an era, is awkwardly as it accomplishes that, or doesn't, right after that.
Absolutely.
Beam us up, Mikey. We're back here on Normies Like Us, where we are talking another Star Trek film. That's right. Live long and keep listening, normies, because we're talking Star Trek Nemesis.
Nemesis
podcast. Yeah,
that's right.
Where did this come from, Jacob? Who decided to make this? Who wanted? Obviously, Insurrection didn't do
from
great.
The minds of Remus.
The mines. Yes.
The dilithium mines. So, like I said before, from 1979 all the way until Enterprise ended in 2005, I really consider that an era of Star Trek, starting with the motion picture, where there was a project every couple of years, never more than 3 years at a time. There was a project, right? After this movie, this movie came out in 2002. Enterprise ended 2005, After that, 4 years until the J.J. Abrams movie was the longest gap between Star Trek projects since 1979. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But 2002, take you back to a good year, 2002. Maybe it was a good year.
God, 9/11 had just happened. I was really coming down from all that.
Yeah, it was
The
a lot to
best
think
time of
about.
my
Millennium had dropped at this point.
God,
Yeah.
absolutely, Mike. I was jamming out, thinking about those towers dropping.
Jeez,
Right.
Spider-Man
And, looking back at the TNG movies, so the last 2 movies, the director was, of course, Jonathan Frakes, William Riker, number 1. This time, and of course, the writers on those movies were all Star Trek writers that had been in the rooms for the shows and stuff that we talked about. Go back and listen, normies, to those episodes. This time, the theme of this movie was new blood, right? New blood. We want to get outside people, not Star Trek regulars, to make this thing. So first of all, the story credit, I thought this was very interesting. So the story credit is Rick Berman, the guy kind of running all of Star Trek. I mentioned a bunch of times. He gets a story credit on all these. So it's Rick Berman, it's the screenwriter, John Logan, and it's Brent Spiner. Data himself gets a story credit on this.
So full spoilers. We're going to talk full spoilers of this movie. I'm invoking that right now.
Yes.
Because Jacob, just with you bringing that up, I'll undercut sort of where this podcast is leading and say, does he just get that because his idea is like, what if I stop doing this character?
Essentially, yeah. I think he was sort of, it was his idea to kill Data. Spoiler alert.
You get a story credit for that. That's incredible.
I don't know how much he was involved, but having a story credit, that's kind of interesting. And this is the only one that he has a story credit on. So very strange. I don't know all the details behind that, but he did want to stop playing Data because he felt like he was aging out of the role for an immortal android that never ages. He's getting older, and it just wouldn't make sense. Of course, he does come back in the Picard show 20 years later, much older, obviously. So
several characters too. I did see something that the screenwriter and Brett Spiner were friends in real life potentially. So that could inform like, hey, what if we put a lot of Data in this screenplay? You know,
that makes sense.
Mike, the lot of Data again, like the story credits, him going like, what if I sang a song?
And then there's another dumber me. Yeah. He does love singing whenever he gets a chance. Yeah.
Brent Spiner, he loves hamming it up anytime he's able to, doing a little Broadway show tunes. That's all well and good. So those are the story credits. The screenwriter, John Logan, and the director, Stuart Baird, 2 guys that had no connection to Star Trek previously to this. Stuart Baird, very interesting. He got his start as an editor and working with Richard Donner specifically. He would edit all of Richard Donner's movies, starting with The Omen, Superman. He was nominated for an Oscar for editing Superman all the way into the mid-90s. And then he also did second unit direction and transitioned to become a full director. And he made 2 movies before this. He made 1996 Executive Decision with Kurt Russell and Steven Seagal. Yes.
Okay.
And then he made 1998 U.S. Marshals, which is the sequel to The Fugitive that focuses on the Tommy Lee Jones U.S. Marshal character.
Can I talk about Stuart Baird for a little bit? I have a unique insight into him in that I am obsessed with a podcast called Action Boys that frequently references Stuart Baird. They've covered several of the films he's edited, but then, of course, you just referenced the 2 he's directed, Executive Decision, U.S. Marshals, both heavy action films. Paramount had a deal with him where he was a cleanup doctor specialist, where he would be pulled into these films. And yes, he had this incredible relationship with Richard Donner. But Superman, the movie, came out and it was like 4 hours long. And they were like, what are we going to do with this? This is a mess. And he was a guy who could truly come in and fix shit.
Yeah. And he was even involved with this new Richard Donner Superman cut that is like the ultimate director's cut or whatever. He was involved with that, even with Richard Donner sadly passing away last year, I believe, or 2 years ago. So yeah, he knows action, he knows editing.
He specialized in wet prints, which were literally like a movie needed to come out so quick to theaters that the processing chemicals were not washed off the film strip while he was editing. Like, his touch was incredible.
Sure.
He gets dangled over him this entire time by Paramount. We know you want to direct. Clean up 3 more movies for us and you'll direct. Oh, sorry, that handshake deal was with this guy? No. The handshake deal's with me. What we meant was 4 more movies. Clean up 4 more movies. And truly, his whole career is this. If you ever listen to him, he's a really funny British guy with a crazy thin mustache. He's like, "Well, I did this picture. They fucked me up, and I did." And like he's like really
great.
body and stuff. He's really crazy.
That's hilarious.
And
Typical
basically,
Hollywood story of
typical
creatives
Hollywood
getting
story.
fucked over.
Basically, the 2 films he directs super suck and are hated, and then he makes this film, and it's interesting that it's also sucks and is super hated. But
You should have
it's
had him
a
edit
monkey
it.
paws situation. Jacob, we've covered 11 of these films. The last one we did, my big requests were, let's do a memorable villain, and let's do new blood talent, get all this shit out of here. No more Picard romance. Like, let's fix all this up. Let's have outside talent like Wrath of Khan.
Exactly.
Boy, buddy, we got it in Monkey's Paw.
And that's what they were
It's just
going
not
for.
good.
Damn, we did get it, huh? Wow.
You know, with Wrath of Khan, Nicholas Meyer coming in, not a Star Trek guy. They wanted their own Nicholas Meyer, so they're like, Stuart Baird, we like his work with action. We want to make this one very action heavy. Patrick Stewart's like, hey, maybe I drive a dune buggy for a little bit.
I love action.
I really like
I
driving.
want to be an action guy.
Yeah.
Why? Stop.
We let you drive around the chair in the X-Men movies. It's out of your system. You drive all day, every day. Stop.
Right. So, so they're like, let's get this guy, Stuart Baird, and I'm sure he wasn't too expensive because they had to keep the budget low. And then they hired John Logan as a screenwriter. And now this is interesting because John Logan, actually a very well-respected screenwriter who's done a lot of good movies. Like, he wrote Gladiator, Ridley Scott's Gladiator, like 2 years before doing this. Oscar nominated, obviously. He would go on to write the Aviator, Martin Scorsese movie. He would write Skyfall, the James Bond movie. So he has he's done like real good movies, you know.
Amazing.
Yeah, but for some reason he also did Star Trek Nemesis.
And is there anything outstanding about this script at all? Is there anything outstanding about the direction at all?
No, just that it's very early 2000s. I feel like the design of everything is very, like, Shinzon is very edgy, like his costumes are edgy, his ship is edgy, like it's all very early 2000s edgy is how I would describe it.
Yeah, it's like PS3 era, like everything's tough. Yeah. There's some okay lines in this movie.
Like, really pointy.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Name one quote, Mike, right now.
You're not going to live to see the victory when the echo overcomes the voice or something like that.
I think I think the scenes where Tom Hardy and Patrick Stewart are acting, going at it, I think those are good scenes.
Yeah, I think those are fine. I think that's honestly, before we get too into it, but I think like this movie may be bad, but I think Tom Hardy, for being an early role, having to go toe to toe with Patrick Stewart, does a pretty good job with what they're given. So, you know, I think that, and it's really got a career because of the performance, even though the movie sucked. Yeah.
Well, and it's sad. It's kind of sad. I mean, it worked out, but this was going to be his breakout role because he was sort of they wanted an unknown name for this. So he really committed to this role and was like, this is going to be my breakout role. And people didn't like it. So
how old is he at this time?
He's probably in his earlier mid-20s.
Wow.
He had only done, a couple parts before this. And then for the next 6 years or so, he would still do smaller parts until his real breakout role, which was the movie Bronson in 2008.
Sure.
Which is his true breakout. But this is where he's showing promise, but unfortunately people just hated this movie, so he didn't get a lot of buzz from that.
I would argue not a star until The Dark Knight Rises, and that's kind of his breakthrough totally to like mainstream. But I kind of became aware of him through a Guy Ritchie movie called Rock and Rolla that later, after Batman, I would tell my dad that was Tom Hardy. And again, us having seen this film we're talking about today in theaters, you couldn't convince either of us that we had seen this man star in a movie 10 years prior to both of those films.
And Yeah, and Rock and Rolla was the year before Bronson, I believe. So it was right around that era when he was starting to do these interesting roles.
Yes.
And Bronson was sort of is a smaller, like indie movie, but his performance was just so good in that people were talking about it. They're like, "Gotta see this movie, Bronson, Tom Hardy." And he's killing it.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, John Logan and Stuart Baird, two outside guys. Not John Logan was a Star Trek fan. Stuart Baird, apparently not really a Star Trek fan, and the cast didn't really like him because he didn't really know TNG before this. He didn't know the characters. He couldn't remember the cast members' names.
Well,
he thought LeVar Burton was an alien.
Interesting. That's a hard card to be dealt when you're like, well, oh yeah, what did the last guy do? And they point to the guy who's starring in the movie, and they're like, well, he's right there. He directed the other three.
Yes.
Damn. Right.
Jonathan Frakes at this time was also directing the movie Clock Stoppers. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, dude. Nickelodeon's Clock Stoppers. I like that movie. Yeah,
He was in post-production on Clock Stoppers.
Wait, Mike, say what the plot of Clock Stoppers is.
So it's like
a time travel.
They have like a science dad, and somehow they have a watch that can stop time, and the teenagers get in hijinks, and somebody wants the watch, and you can freeze time and do all kinds of wacky stuff. They had like famous shots of, the water droplet of a hose freezing, like that kind of visual.
Is it a Drake or a Josh?
I don't know if it's a Drake or a Josh, but it's probably like we have a Drake and Josh at home kind of thing.
Movie kind of thing.
Yeah. But anyway, Clock Stoppers.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
Clock Stoppers.
I've only seen it once.
And then he would do
Jonathan Frakes. Wow.
And then he directed Thunderbirds after that in 2004.
Thunderbirds? Say the plot of Thunderbirds real quick.
Is that based off the puppet show?
Yeah, it cannot be, right?
No.
A comedy version of
it's about a guy and his 4 sons on board the damaged Thunderbird 5 to steal all the other Thunderbird vehicles. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like it's based on that property.
100%. Is it live action?
I think so.
Yeah.
Did Jonathan Frakes kind of only do TV bopper stuff after leaving? It's sounding
pretty
like
much. He did a lot of TV stuff.
Well, who's the parent company? Viacom, right? You move them around in that kind of zone. Hey, you could do the kind of BC movies. But anyway, Weird Room, like we were saying earlier, like he just directed the last ones, and then you have this new director that nobody likes.
It's like in the OG cast when, Shatner did one and Nimoy did one. And then after that, if they just went back to some random guy and was like, all right, this guy's going to direct the next one, it would be kind of weird.
They got lucky with Wrath of Khan. That guy's not a Star Trek guy, but
Nicholas Meyer.
They got lucky with Nimoy that he's just like interesting and weird.
That's true.
But so for this one, I mean, the whole idea was enough of these TV writers. We're going to get these outside guys, like I said, fresh blood, get a new take on the series, kind of make it more action oriented, which again, Patrick Stewart's been kind of harping on behind the scenes this whole time. And this is what we get. We get Nemesis.
You know what? No matter what I do, I just can't seem to escape bald-headed leads having too much creative control in their own projects. We just did this with Fast X, and now we're in this TNG era where I'm hating what is going on with the Picard stuff. And get buckle up. We're time to dune buggy it. Yeah, what a wild
too much.
And the big complaint, obviously, is that it was very villain-centric and very Patrick Stewart-centric, which all the movies are. But again, the rest of the cast, a lot of them don't get much to do. And it really becomes the Picard, a little bit of Data, Shinzon, a little bit of Riker and Troy, but other than that, it's like the rest of the cast like it's nothing to do.
You're saying a little bit, and that's astounding because you're really giving a lot of leeway there, and I love that for you. It's kind of nothing, dude.
So I guess let's get into the plot of this movie. What actually happens in this thing, And I think it starts pretty well with a big opening scene, right? A big bang. We get the Romulan Senate. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Romulans as a race.
Oh, totally. I do want to say my memory watching this as a kid, I did not understand that they were the Romulans, and I believed that the gargoyles were the Romulans the whole time, and did
those
not.
are the Remans, right?
So absolutely. Explain it now, please. But
so of course the Romulans were invented for the 1966 OG episode,
The Balance of Terror.
Balance of Terror. Yeah, I just blanked on the name. I was
No
preparing.
worries.
earlier.
Yeah. Well, you're hosting. You're crushing. You got all these
yeah.
facts. Yeah, I can number. I'll
Balance
be your
of
number
Terror,
one.
which if you remember, Colin, Strange New Worlds.
I'll be your
that
counselor.
great episode where it sort of retells the events of that episode.
Yes, incredible.
Through Pike's eyes, kind of. And so the Romulans were introduced. Now, obviously, they were sort of based on ancient Rome, right? What would the Romans be like if they existed today as like an alien species? That's what the Romulans were supposed to be. That's why they have like a Senate, the Roman Senate.
Opening
Imperial
shot,
ambition.
fucking landscape, incredible.
Yeah, and they want.
So they were somewhat based on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're based on the Romans. They were also sort of an analogy for the Soviet Union, right? Again, we're getting into the Cold War, which is a big deal for many years, right?
Mhm.
So, and that was kind of their thing. They had this Iron Curtain, the neutral zone between Federation and Romulan space. Romulans were this species that everyone knew of, but no one had ever seen a picture of, and all this stuff. They were very secretive, very isolated, and it's very Cold War, right?
Yeah.
And so
they're
as
like
we find out, there's
subterfuge spies. They do, it's a lot of that kind of energy.
Dun, dun, dun.
yeah, and so they live on the home planet of Romulus. I guess there's another planet next to it called Remus. Romulus and Remus, of course, a reference to the brothers who founded Rome back in the day. The legend of
Raised
founding
by
of Rome,
wolves.
raised by the she-wolf. Romulus kills his brother Remus and then founds the ancient city of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why an alien species would have planets named after human legend, I don't know. But
Well, it's a little bit
don't
of
think about it
Apollo's
too much.
children, right? Like the Greek gods and stuff were just aliens that wanted to be, according to TOS, they just wanted to have people worship them. They found this planet called Earth where everybody was stupid. They're like, they'll think I'm a god here, right? That's kind of
That
what
could
went
be.
on.
And
Right,
Romulus and
yeah.
Remus of legend, their father was the Roman god Mars,
Mm.
god of war.
So Apollo has shown up as just an alien. So who knows?
Yeah, could
Let
be.
us know.
So we have these planets, Romulus and Remus. The Remans are these Nosferatu-looking motherfuckers, like you said, who are kind of subjugated by the Romulans and forced to do labor in the mines and stuff and treated as like second-class citizens, essentially. And the Remans had really never been delved into in Star Trek before this movie. So that's very interesting. Romulans,
That's their
I
little
feel
twist.
Yeah. Romulans, I also feel like have been underutilized through a lot of Star Trek. Obviously Klingons were more popular, and then you had the Borg and the Dominion, but Romulans are kind of always there lurking in the background. And I do like when they focus on them, like in TNG and that kind of thing. And it's kind of funny because the next movie we're going to talk about also features
I was going to
Romulans.
say, it's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
interesting that you say that, considering my Star Trek movie experience going as a young man was like
Eric
seeing
Bana.
too many Romulans as
Hey,
bad
you know
guys
what?
in films back to back. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Once again, we can't escape a bald bad guy who's Romulan, who's a miner. The mining man.
Actually, when you think about it, like I didn't realize how much
It'll
Eric
never work.
Bana's character is just like Shinzon again, basically.
it's just he's just a
Yeah,
Romulan
pretty
instead of a
much.
human. It's very similar.
He even has like a crazy ship like him. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Which again informs what the Shrike looks like in Picard. All these pointy
Yeah.
ships, anyway.
That's right.
Wow.
The
But
scimitar.
Romulans are underused, I think. They return in Picard season 1 mostly. But yeah, a good set of villains.
And anytime they focused on them in TNG, it was interesting. Like when when Spock
the
became an
infiltrate.
ambassador and was trying to make peace with the Romulans. Of course, the Vulcans and the Romulans are like distant cousin species. That's why they both have pointy ears and everything. But the Romulans, just a very interesting angle where there's like secretive race that no one knows much about. They live on the other side of this neutral zone, and they've just been in Cold War with the Federation for like hundreds of years.
Yep. And I do like the introduction of the Remans and the idea their planet, it doesn't spin on its axis. It has a completely dark side. The sun-facing side is too hot, and it's like they have to live underground and in the dark, so that's why they look like vampires. Like, that's cool. Like, that is additive to, I think, the world of Star Trek, the Remans. I like that species. I like the idea of, like, we're always
it was
in the
interesting.
dark.
They look cool.
Yeah.
Now,
And,
again, here's my experience. We're just watching this. We're introduced to what the Remans look like. Now, I out loud say, having not rewatched this in many years, not looked up a cast list beforehand, I go, "Oh, Ron Perlman's in this. That's great."
That's amazing that you were able to identify him under this.
How Kid you
Makeup.
not. Hellboy himself steps out and you go, oh yeah, that's Hellboy's face. I know that face.
Yeah. Oh, that's Beauty and the Beast. Like you could just,
That's the Beast, Mike.
yeah. Incredible.
Ron Perlman playing Shinzon's buddy, his Riemann buddy.
No name. Just his
viceroy.
Yeah, his
viceroy.
viceroy. You're exactly right.
But the way this movie starts, right? We see the Romulan Senate. They're all holding a meeting, and basically this weapon goes off, and the entire Romulan Senate is killed, assassinated. Right?
Turned to stone.
Big opening event to set off this movie.
Yeah, big deal. I like the opening too. I'm like, okay, we have some political intrigue. Romulan's always good for that, a little bit of backstabbing, subterfuge happening. Okay, who's behind it? Like, I'm okay with how we start this movie out.
And I do like it, especially after Insurrection, where that felt like so, like, oh, small stakes. Like it's just about this one planet. That like why do we even care? Now it's like, oh, the Romulans. Okay, this is good. We're kicking things off right. It's going to be real Star Trek.
Intrigue.
We're having a coup.
There seems to be
kind.
something going on. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You could totally picture in your head the crew being pulled into this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say it off the top. Like I think this movie has some interesting ideas, but maybe the execution isn't always the best. And I think that's what holds it back because it could have been good, but the execution kind of makes it fall flat at times. So we are introduced to our main villain. Wait, are we even introduced to Shinzon yet, or do we cut to...
I think we go to a wedding, which I also like this wedding sequence. It's fine. Like it's a good way to reintroduce for an audience screenwriting. I think it works better for me than the boat. When they walk the plane.
A promotion.
Yeah.
So we cut to Will Riker and Deanna Troy's wedding, because as you remember in Insurrection, they rekindled their romance on the planet that makes you live forever. So they're now getting married finally after many years of sort of on again, off again romance. And Jean-Luc Picard giving a speech as the best man. We see, we look out in the crowd, we see our old friend Guinan, we see young Wesley in a non-speaking cameo in this wedding scene. They threw him a little bone. Will Wheaton said, "Here you go."
You got done traveling the universe with the Traveler, and just was like, "I'll go to the wedding."
Yeah,
I don't know either. And I feel weird when I see him interviewing the current cast too, talking about how exciting is it to be back at Strange New World season 2, and like they're like it's just great, and I just see like the life leaving his body every time he hears
like in the
enjoying being
what
in the
about
show.
you, Will?
Picard season 3, when they're like, they basically recast me with a new son that Picard has. That's Beverly Crusher's new son. But I can't come back. Yeah.
No, but he showed up for the wedding.
Going
to a wedding was important enough for him to stop going with the Traveler. But like world-ending stakes with his family,
right? Meeting his half brother,
not important enough. Yeah. Kind of like having the director who did the last movie sitting right next to you while you're directing this. Is a little awkward, but anyway, the wedding scene continues.
So Riker and Troy getting married. Jean-Luc Picard gives a nice speech. Data sings a little song, Blue Skies.
Heard that, yep.
And everyone's, doing great. And we learned that, they're about to go, or they're going to Beta Z, which is Deanna Troy's home planet, for a traditional Beta Z wedding ceremony in which they all have to be naked. And Worf's very against that idea.
It's a never nude.
Honestly, that would be kind of weird if you had to just go with all your coworkers to a wedding and you all had to be naked.
100% into it. There would be no issues here.
For Harambe, let's go.
Yeah, sure. For Harambe, absolutely. I work with Harambe.
But while en route to Beta Z, they get a transmission from an old friend, Admiral Janeway. Kate Mulgrew in a little cameo, which I love.
Yep.
Of course, the captain of the USS Voyager.
Now an admiral.
Says, Admiral Janeway. Which I do wonder what happened to her between now and Picard season 3, because was she just there at that battle, and was she killed by her younger crew after they were turned into Borg? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, was she at that battle or not?
I don't know about any of that. Can I ask my own separate question? Is
Yes.
DS9 still ongoing? And is Worf's excuse for being here just this wedding? And like, nobody else needed to come. He doesn't have anywhere else to go.
So DS9 had ended by this point.
Oh.
Voyager was almost like Voyager was ending this year, and Enterprise was starting. So, think
I'm
about
sorry,
2002.
I missed that if you said that before. That's wild.
Yeah, DS9 ended in the late 90s. And Voyager was kind of ongoing, but Voyager had just ended basically. So Voyager had come back to Earth.
So Worf can literally just be like, I don't know, I'm here. Don't worry about it.
They did make excuses in the last two movies, or they made explanations. In this one, I guess they shot a deleted scene because at the end of DS9, he was made. So Martok, General Martok became the new Chancellor of the Klingons, and Worf was made the Klingon ambassador to the humans, I think.
Wow.
So he was an ambassador. And there was a scene they shot where he was like, oh, like the diplomatic life didn't suit me or something. So that was his explanation for why he was back. But
that's kind of just, I'm glad they cut that.
Yeah. So I guess he's just here for the wedding, but he's also back on the Enterprise.
Well, he's going to the Betazoid one, even though he doesn't want to be naked. He's like, I gotta go to support him. Like, shit. If you're driving, I'll ride with you. Yeah.
Right. So they get a transmission. Admiral Janeway says, well, so there's a new Romulan Praetor named Shinzon, and he wants to meet with you. So we're sending you to Romulus to start some peace talks. Obviously, this had been a goal of the Federation for a long time to try to make peace with the Romulans. And who better to send than Jean-Luc Picard, the greatest diplomat in the Federation, right?
Okay.
He gets all the easy assignments, she says. We got to go. Who is this new Praetor? Why has there been she says, a shakeup in the government? And all right, new leadership. I guess we should talk to whoever's in charge over there.
Yeah.
See what they want.
Now, also while this is happening, we get our other plot thread, which is the Data plot, where they get a transmission. They're like, this transmission could only come from an android, like Data, basically. So they go to this planet, and this is where we get the extraneous dune buggy action scene. That just seems like Patrick Stewart was like, hey, what if there's a scene where I drove a dune buggy and it just became Mad Max for a little bit, and we shot some guys on a planet, we picked up some pieces of an android, and it'll be great.
Yeah. Some reason, they get down there, they find a B4, another Data head, and they're like, okay. And then as soon as they pick it up in their little dune buggy, here's 10 more dune buggies to chase. And we gotta.
And they announced this it's called the Argo, and we're going to test drive the Argo, which is apparently now the Enterprise has a dedicated dune buggy for all its missions where they'll need a dune buggy. But it just seems like a really un-Star Trek thing to just have a thing with 4 wheels. Like that seems like outdated.
This is the moment where I'm like, oh, Galaxy Quest 2 rules. And then I'm like, oh, this isn't Galaxy Quest 2? Oh, no.
No, and
they literally have a mounted machine gun on the back that Worf starts shooting. It's crazy.
Well, the fact that you bring it down in a shuttlecraft that can fly over any terrain anyway. Right. It seems kind of useless.
It's so unnecessary.
Argo is the brand of actual off-road vehicles.
Oh, really?
And
that's
so
cool.
They may have built this specifically for this thing and just call it the Argo. It's worse, isn't it? It's
so
worse.
Argo was like, we'll pay you $100,000 if you call it the Argo.
Yeah.
Even
the shuttlecraft was the Argo. So they have one craft that just takes the dune buggy down. It's like a trailer for your dirt bike. Very stupid.
So Patrick Stewart, like, all of a sudden, I love driving dune buggies. I'm going to drive this. We're going to pick up these pieces of this android. They go back to the Enterprise. They put them together. They realize, oh, I am B4. He's a prototype that Dr. Soong made before making Data. So he's like just a dumb guy who doesn't know anything, who keeps asking questions, right?
Yep. It's before Data was made, before lore. That's why he's called B4, right? Very
B4.
clever.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
How many other Datas are out there?
There's those 3, and that's it. And then he had a daughter named Lal that was like his daughter.
Data with a wig?
No.
It was like
he gave his child the option to
Brent
crickets.
Spider in a tutu.
Oh, okay. I know that's how they would have done it, but yeah, that's a whole TNG thing. But even know why we have B4. Like, how does it factor into the plot? What is the point of this?
That's not revealed until later, and it doesn't make sense when it is revealed. Yeah.
Here's the thing. It feels so thinly veiled to the reaction to Wrath of Khan, where, look, we're getting out of this thing. Like, we're losing one of our actors. Okay, I'm not sticking around. And an executive going like, put in this thing that's like a fail-safe way for us to get around this thing you want to do, just in case.
Well, that's exactly right, because if they were going to make a 5th movie, and Brent Spiner confirmed this, they were going to bring Data back as B4, just taking over B4's body and sublimating his personality, basically.
Why?
Oh, man. It's just, man, and they do that in Picard, where it's like, we're going to give you a new body, but then it's just you again. It's like,
so in Picard, he has all the different personalities. So at one point he's like, now I'm B4. Now
at the end of Picard,
what does he do? What does he say?
Everyone.
Remember.
He starts singing. That's what he does.
No.
That's the thing. He loves playing wacky roles. Like, they bring him back as different Soong relatives so many times. They bring him back in Enterprise. They bring him back in Picard. Like, it's great.
And they're increasingly unhinged. So we get B4. It's a little, I don't know. Is it like Wrath of Khan, where it's like Chekhov goes down? Oh shit! There's, I don't know. It has shades of that, like an away mission to build up to our threat. I guess I don't know.
But then you're thinking like, what does this have to do with the Romulans and Shinzon? Like, this seems so random.
Why are we not going where we're supposed to go?
The writing seems
with
so
the structure.
Bad.
Anyway,
saying he gets the call first and then this other thing, I couldn't place what the series of events were that lead through this.
Yeah, and I don't even know if that's the correct order, but it just kind of all happens at once. So they get the robot, they get the android, they go.
Let's go.
To
Why?
Romulus.
Okay.
I guess because they wanted to see what was out there. Of course, that was all, as we later, a trap set by Shinzon, blah blah blah. We're skipping ahead. Let's go to Romulus. So they show up to Romulus. They're like, all right, we're going to meet with this new Praetor, Shinzon.
I do love this scene.
Yeah. So they show up. At first they think, first person they meet is Ron Perlman, the Reman. They're like, oh, you must be Shinzon. He's like, no, I'm just a viceroy, blah, blah, blah.
I am a viceroy.
And so then they meet Shinzon. Now it's like a dark scene, right? He's walking down these steps. They're like, oh, we don't like the sunlight because blah, 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 right? Like you were saying.
Yeah. We're vampires,
Yeah, so they have this.
Have you noticed? We're vampires.
And so they meet Shinzon. He knows their names already. He's like, blah, blah, blah. I know all of you. They turn up the lights, and it's a young, bald Tom Hardy, right?
I know
that
you
really
because
is
I'm one of you.
Yeah. He has like light prosthetics, I think, to look more like Patrick Stewart, but Patrick Stewart really has to sell like, I'm looking at myself. Like,
I was gonna say their approach to casting was like, as long as he's bald and has a British accent, people think he's young Picard. That's all he needs.
But his teeth are super fucked up. No, don't worry about that.
It's the British way.
Just like Picard's. Just like Picard. But I like that it's really dark. Things like raise the lighting by 3 levels. Like, it's so like moody and extra. He's got this opalescent suit. It's like, what are you doing?
He's wearing all this like leather. Like,
he's the Green Goblin.
Very edgy.
Purple and green.
Like a purple goblin. Yeah.
And again,
then
Tom
he
Hardy.
does
sort of an unknown actor at this point, but starting to break out in small parts. Do you know who they wanted also before Tom Hardy? Well, they really wanted an unknown name, but they were thinking about Jude Law.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Another young British actor at the time. And I could see that, but I love the Tom Hardy of it all because, as you know, Normies, I love Tom Hardy. I love how unhinged he is in so many roles, how the crazy accents, the affectations. In this, he's kind of playing a young Picard. He's not really like Picard at all. Like, he doesn't act like Picard. He's just doing his own thing, but he's a very villainous guy.
Yeah, but the real Jean-Luc's take on it is, if you're a clone of me, you'll basically act exactly like me, and I can just like yell at you and like bully you into doing the things I would, which I kind of disagree is not like the nurture versus nature of it all.
Yeah. Which I think
Right.
that's what they're trying to play with. This whole thing's like nature versus nurture. Like we see,
Yes.
like B4
Well,
trying to develop into something. We see how you could become an evil
Yes.
version. We literally have
Yes.
Romulus and Remus, the metaphor.
And yes, that's beautiful. And Mike, I definitely want
It's
to point
executed
this out
poorly.
and just say, like, it is. But
Exactly.
But they
in
started
the compendium of interesting things, there's also this very clear development of Jean-Luc Picard is his own greatest enemy. It's something that's been explored of like La Cutesse versus Jean-Luc, right? This sort of like internal struggle he has. What if we just fucking drop all pretense and just say like it's him versus him? Like what does it matter, right?
Well, and
there's
there is
something
this
cool
running
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the show there was this running theme of young Picard was too impulsive, too brash, too Shatner-like almost, where he
That's
was
why he
just...
has a fake heart. He got
Yes,
stabbed.
there's the
for
episode
that.
where he almost died in a bar fight, and he gets
basically
an
in a bar
artificial
fight. He
heart.
gets stabbed. Yeah, like
Yeah.
he was that brash as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was just...
Take me to the future where I can get stabbed in the heart and survive it, please.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, so as you know, and he talks about it a little bit with...
Yeah,
with
he has his
Beverly and
backstory. It's tragic, right?
Yeah.
He was supposed to be a clone for Picard to eventually replace Picard in Starfleet. It was going to be this whole thing.
So this
Then-
was...
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Romulan scheme. And I like this because this is very Cold War, where we knew, you know, Soviet Union, they had sleeper cells living in America that were like doing spy stuff, right? So this is like, if they had cloning technology, you can assume that the Soviets would have cloned like JFK or whatever and like try to install him.
It's
in
like
the
a
presidency.
sci-fi. It's a stretch, but it's like, yeah, you would of course do that if the technology was sufficiently capable of that, right? You would try
So
to
I
get
like
your
that
Manchurian
idea.
candidate. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, what happened? Well, different leadership came out and they didn't like the plan, so they canceled it and they just sent me to the Riemann mines, and they just kind of forgot about me. And left
What's
me
your
to die.
tragic backstory? Funding was cut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, they just cut his program and said, well, he was young, so they said, he's a minor. Send him over there.
Right.
He's a minor, make him a minor.
Yeah, put him in the mine. Yeah. So
Exactly.
enemy
That's
mine.
a Galaxy Quest joke, right?
Right.
Not miners, miners.
And
It's
they
a
just said-
Galaxy Quest 2. I already told
They
you
just
that.
leaned into
Yeah.
it, yeah. So he found a guy to protect him in the mine, stick him under his wing. That would become his
And that
viceroy.
is Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman took pity on him.
Nosferatu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for some reason he has like psychic powers, maybe, and that's a thing that he can do.
Once ever, yeah.
For some reason, yeah.
Not crazy explained, but so his whole thing is like he wanted revenge against the Romulans for fucking making Riemann second-class citizens, for abandoning him as a clone. He's all pissed off, so he's trying to tell Picard, like, look, man, I got no beef with you, dude. We're cool. Like, I'm just a leader now because they were being mean, all right? Like, that's the game that he's trying to sell.
At first he's kind of being friendly with them. His ultimate plan is kind of stupid. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, somehow he convinced the Romulan military to back him, convinced them that they had to kill the entire Romulan Senate for his plan to work, and then he would take over as the head of Romulus. And the ultimate plan is to destroy the Federation. For what reason?
Why?
Like,
And
what
he
beef
also
does he have with the Federation? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like they didn't send DNA to the Romulans and say make a clone and abandon it. I don't know why he's upset with the Federation. I know he needs like a blood transfusion too. Like he's sick or something and he needs Picard's
Yeah, we
blood.
gotta tie that stuff in.
So
But
this
that
is what
doesn't-
happened. So when they
yeah.
created the clone, they created him so he would age faster than normal, so they could age him up to Picard's age for the
Right.
plan. So he would like skip 30 years of his life, but because they didn't activate it or something, so he's now dying because his cells are like decaying at a rapid rate, and he needs he needs like a full blood transfusion from Picard, you know, to get he's the only DNA match, right?
Right, which still doesn't lead into also I want to destroy the Federation. It's very messy, and I was like so confused about what is his motivation. Like after, like I was kind of okay with the coup in that. It's like, okay, this is kind of different. He was oppressed.
Oh, I liked
fine.
all of it. And Jacob, I don't even have an issue with the military backing him. That is such a Castro, you know, like, hey, this general kind of like curries favor, and now the people in the government are like horrified of him, where it's like, oh, uh-oh.
And the Remans
Like,
are
that's how
known
that shit happens,
good warriors too. It's like he's got his own troops too. Like which is
Right. But the Romulans just being like, oh, we're gonna let this guy that we like abused for like years in the Riemann mines like take over and run things.
Just imagine these politicians not wanting to blow shit up and the military being like, no, we will back whoever says blow shit up.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
just see who see who's backing who in real life. So like, Jesus,
right.
really? Yeah.
So I guess his whole plan is, we're gonna destroy the Federation. I need Picard's blood so I don't die. So we're gonna kidnap him, take all his blood. And guess what? I've set this B4 trap because somehow we got our hands on this B4 prototype.
Okay.
So we just put it on this random planet because we knew the Enterprise would go investigate it.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I'm thinking, like, what?
Why. Yeah.
It's like these storylines are tied together. Like a woman called me earlier and said I should come shake your hand. Like, that's why I'm here. This robot means nothing to me.
And like you meet him and he cuts his hand and gives you the knife and says, I think you'll want that. It's like, this guy's weird, dude.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Mirrors and echoes, bro. You're weird.
So his whole master plan was basically to kidnap Picard so he could take his blood. But before that happens, he's going to pretend like he just wants peace with the Federation. They're going to have some scenes together. Meanwhile, back on the Enterprise, the crew's trying to figure out what B4 has to do with all this, and they discover this Tholian what was it called? Tholian radiation.
Yeah, sure.
Space radiation.
Some kind of radiation.
So here's
technobabble.
They very neatly have to go like, okay, so the radiation that used was the weapon that killed the Senate. Okay, it was also on this robot. And also it's from the ship. And the ship is something that's like you guys said, like a big cool thing that's like
a weapon
put
of mass
together, and it looks like every weapon like rolled in like Katamari Damacy.
Got a bunch of
like,
points.
It's got, like,
it's called the scimitar.
And it's like sharp, and it's like like the name's bad. And you just get this idea that again, whether it's like a note or truly, because I don't want to put these decisions on John Logan because they're so like basic, but like just him being like, so like the guy's sick. What if the ship was sick too, and it like leaked radiation? You're like,
This is the guy that wrote Gladiator 2 years before this, and then would go on to write The Aviator 2 years after this.
Wow,
wild.
I don't know.
Did a bunch of drugs in between. Like he went to rehab, and this was like his like work study there. Like I'll sweat the drugs out. I'll write a Star Trek.
But again, it just seems like, it's all like Rick Berman and like these people in charge of Star Trek saying we need like something cool, like something the kids will like. This is the 2000s. This is not the 90s anymore. We need something to hook the kids. It's got to look cool. It's got to look like a PlayStation 3. He's got to be edgy. He's got to be wearing fucking black leather, crazy costumes and stuff. Like that's just what it feels like, Yeah,
he's cutting his hand open, and I mean, I guess it's also what do we have the other crew members do? Because it is very Picard data, so that's what they have to do. And I guess, and again, I'm tuning out at points. Like it's really hard to focus at this point. And I guess the radiation leak is what helps them detect them. Because they're cloaked always. So in the space battle, they're able to track with radiation. It's kind of like another version of the nebula from Khan. Their sensors don't work right, and that's the whole thing.
Right. Well, so Picard, Picard has a scene with Shinzon where they're like, we just want to make peace with the Federation stuff. Picard wants to believe him, but then he goes back to the Enterprise. They're like, we found this like Tholian radiation particles. He's like, well, that's odd. Let's look into that. Like, I want to believe the Shinzon guy, but he seems very villainous and menacing, so I don't know.
He's presenting as villain, bro. I don't know. Like
he really is. And then meanwhile, B4 is like, what are feet? I guess like that's what we're supposed to be liking, opposed to spending any time with the people you want to see.
Yes, you are.
He's just a guy that says why a bunch and doesn't understand anything.
Why?
But then ultimately, so
wish I could tell.
Shinzon enacts his big plan, which is to beam Picard from the Enterprise to his ship where he's going to drain all his blood, I think. And we find out that B4 was his trap, that he was able to hack the Enterprise basically and get, all their info about ship positions and all that kind of stuff. But then we see double reverse trap. Picard plays his double reverse Uno card, and it turns out Data was pretending to be B4 on the scimitar.
It was Data, you fool.
Yeah. So they break out of the scimitar, and now they're like, okay, Shinzon definitely a bad guy. He's going to blow up the Federation. We need to get back to the Federation and warn them. So they take off. Scimitar starts following them. Like you said, it's cloaked, so they don't know where it is and stuff. And that's when this whole space battle stuff starts happening. They get caught in this rift, the Basan rift or whatever.
Yeah. Another anomalous area of space. Yeah.
Like the Briar Patch from his Insurrection, right?
Yeah, or whatever the stuff
there's
was
some
in
green
Picard.
stuff going on, and you can't the communications can't go through it because of this rift.
Yeah, we can't contact the Federation. We gotta deal with this ourselves, I guess, at this point. We got
I guess that's what all this is set up for. Otherwise, I have no clue.
Wild.
Meanwhile, some of the Romulans are starting to think like, hey, maybe the Shinzon guy is like crazy and like probably shouldn't be our leader. So they contact the Enterprise. They're like, hey, we're sorry about all this. We want to help. And then there's some space battle stuff. And then Picard crashes the Enterprise, rams the Enterprise into the Scimitar.
Interesting move.
Yeah.
Ramming
crashing
speed.
The Enterprise. Yeah.
And then what? Ron Perlman and Jonathan Frakes fight. Like the ending of this, I'm just so like, I can't follow why things are happening. I know that they are. I just don't know why.
Yeah.
They certainly are happening, Mike.
And this is the thing. What I'm saying is that like it sets up interesting ideas, but then by the last hour of this movie, it is sort of unwatchable, where I was kind of just tuning out and started looking at my phone a bunch because it's just hard to pay attention. You're right.
But
it's
the
just
good
not
ideas,
well.
like the idea of the coup, and then I want peace, like, and then
but they
also
take a potentially interesting villain in Shinzon and then just make him more one-dimensional by the end of it, where he's just like, well, he's crazy and he wants to destroy the Federation.
Right, and even like a Romulan citizen being like, hey, actually, we kind of don't like this guy, Picard. Like, you're right, he's bad, and we want to work with you. Like, that's a cool idea, and they just don't pay off the cool ideas. They just pay off.
I forget what that actress's name is, but she absolutely rules. She's from Starship Troopers, and previously on this podcast, Johnny Mnemonic.
hey, you're right. Nice.
Dina Meyer, I think. Dina Meyer.
Dina Meyer,
Dina Meyer.
Nice. Yeah, so good ideas here, but I am confused by the end. Like I the whole end sequence, Data sacrifice.
Yes, so
like, what is any of it?
So here's what happens. So Picard is like, well, first, Shinzon appears as a hologram in his office. They have another scene together.
Scene rules. Yep.
Yeah, he's sitting in his chair. Did he have a box on his ship that was the same height?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
He pulls a Star Wars move that I often wonder. Yes, which is the interactive sitting down on a hologram where
like
it's like,
Senate,
what's going on?
Right. Right. I mean, they have pretty advanced hologram technology in Star Trek, right?
Well, and he already had the specs, so he knew the exact height of the chair from the B4 subterfuge.
Right.
So he got the exact measurement, stacked a couple newspapers.
Sit me down.
Yeah.
Also, Colin, I think you make a good point that Shinzon is sort of a proto Kylo Ren in a lot of ways, where he's like
edgy, cool.
This edgy villain that I like.
Yes, and obviously, I said before that he connects to a lot of films. Bane, his background stands out. The Raised in Darkness. I want revenge on the hero. All that good stuff. There's this. This film is very 2000s in a lot of ways, Jacob.
Yes, but I do love this scene together where he's like, if you lived my life, you'd be doing the exact same thing, and Picard has to like question it, like, is that true? Like you said, the nature versus nurture thing, but then he's also like, well, if I'm a mirror of you, then you're a mirror of me. So like I could show you that like you could actually live a better life, and
Jean-Luc Picard would never gain pleasure from taking a life, let alone a planet's worth.
I can't change what I am. Yeah, like that stuff is good.
Mike. That
stuff is good.
Yeah, he's some pretty good lines too, and then he's just like, I forget his last line before he signs off, but it's pretty dope.
He just hangs up.
Them going toe to toe, it is like the best stuff. And just to see him, like Tom Hardy, at least like not get completely like knocked out in the first round, so to speak. Yeah, like it's pretty impressive work.
Pretty much unknown actor at this time, coming in and holding his own against Patrick Stewart
with all these dual monologues. Yeah, I give him that. But the rest of the movie's boring.
Let's get to what happens to him, because I would argue if the chemistry equation for this film you're coming into as a gifted screenwriter like this man is literally going like, let's reverse engineer, let's make our own Khan. There's nobody in the canon, again, we've proven there is, Q, any of the many admirals, millions of enemies Jean-Luc Picard could face translated to film. I don't understand why
Borg
they didn't do
Queen.
any of it. The Borg Queen, which I guess
Yeah.
they did. Yeah, whatever.
One of the Gauls. 4 lights,
Sure.
man.
But that they literally say instead, like, no, the only thing that could ever stand up against Jean-Luc Picard is another Jean-Luc Picard. Let's go for it. That's super fascinating. Why would you immediately erase that? Why would you give that up in this one film and have him be killed? That seems like an incredible foil to keep around, unless you know that this film franchise does not have further existence in its future.
Well, yeah, they are trying to give Picard like his own con, like a true rival. But I feel like he already had that with the Borg. Like the Borg are his con. Just
First
in
contact
general.
was done. Yeah.
Yeah, that's never gonna be the same though, because that's never gonna be him facing an equal. That's gonna be him facing his greatest threat. And the whole thing you want to see about the Sherlock Moriarty of Kirk and Khan is the like, you thought you had me, but this. You thought you had me, but this. And that back and forth, which with the Borg Queen, it's mainly like, I shot drone number 6. I shot drone number 14.
Yeah.
Hey, knock it out. Get out of my head.
But he does end up dealing with Shinzon in the same way that he dealt with the Borg Queen, where he's like, I need to go alone and confront this person.
And Data's going to help.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. So Picard wants to go alone and sacrifice himself. Data and Geordi, who's in on the plan, I guess. Data's like, let me go save Picard, and then I'll sacrifice myself. So they shoot him. He jumps.
Quick aside.
Yeah.
LeVar Burton looking sexy as hell, still visor off. Please continue. He pulls a Guardians 3, Jacob. He jumps in between the ships touching each other.
Right. Well, first of all, LeVar Burton, they should have realized a long time ago. Seeing his eyes just adds so much more to his acting, right? Like acting the eyes are the soul, the window to the human soul, right?
Yeah,
so to deny his eyes for so long in the show was, I think, a big mistake. But yeah, he's doing good in this. So Data, he jumped. There's like a hole in the ship. He jumps from ship to ship. Of course, he's an android, so he can do that. Yeah.
No, he does a Guardians 3. He dies like Peter Quill. Yeah,
well, technically, Peter Quill does a LeVar Burton, but
right.
Very true.
And of course, Picard confronts Shinzon. They kind of have a little fight, and then he ends up stabbing Shinzon. He has a villainous death scene. And
Such
then
a
Perlman gets
lame
beat
way
up by
to go.
Riker.
Do you guys like any of this?
No. Well, that's the thing is like Shinzon starts out as like this cool, interesting villain, but then by the end of it, he just evolves to this very one-note, lamely executed villain, where it's just like, I don't even care if you live or die. Like,
I like the transformation to sick and whiny, but if it carried the weight that it did in that introduction, Jacob, if he still was cunning and dangerous and stuff, he is not by this point. He's just like very weak, and like he gets stabbed and he's like, that's not nice, daddy. And then he just like dies, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah. An old man easily beats him in a physical fight.
Now, okay, here's a question.
I think you mean the old man.
Mike, do you think you could physically overcome a, let's say, 10 years younger clone of you?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay, Jacob, same question.
No, probably not. And if I was like,
I was in much better shape 10 years ago,
and my clone was in his 20s, then probably definitely no.
Is Picard supposed to be in his 60s? I was going to give him 40s.
That's true. I don't know
what he's definitely older than 40s, because he was like 40s when the show started.
So let's say I'm 33 then. Let me give it the difference he has then. I'll say a 30-year younger clone. So I have to fight a 4-year-old.
I think he must have been in his 60s at this point, because he's in his 80s now, 20 years later. So if you think about that.
Yeah.
But so he gets in a little fight, stabs him with a fucking piece of the wall or whatever. Also, Shinzon has his signature knife that we didn't mention, that he's always
fantastic.
The poster, it's always holding it
very
up.
heavily used.
Very heavily marketed, and yet the rest of the poster is just Picard and Data's face, just the two of them. That sucks. That fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And so I want to mention, while you're saying other people didn't have much to do, like the postering, right?
Yes.
they do have like one moment that is like the worst thing in any Star Trek past Sub Rosa, and it's this stuff with Troy. They like psychically do some
Yes.
violation of,
Yes.
rights. And
That
then
is a very
they pay
weird
it off
scene.
by her fucking using her brain to find the ship. I think that's the dumbest thing in this entire screenplay one.
was.
Like, that's
So-
terrible what they did to Deanna Troy.
So the Ron Perlman Riemann character,
Viceroy.
like I
Mhm.
mentioned, has some kind of psychic powers. I don't know if all Riemanns are psychic or just this one has psychic powers, but he's during a love scene between Riker and Troy, he like invades her mind and like psychically rapes her basically. It's very messed up. And then he also uses psychic powers to like calm Tom Hardy down and like ease his pain. 'cause
Oh
he's, like,
yeah, that's right.
when he puts his
Right.
hand on him and stuff. So I don't
Well,
know why
that's right,
that's
yeah.
any of that is in the movie. Like,
Totally
what does that add to the
unnecessary.
movie? Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
no, it's terrible. And like,
very
yeah,
dumb.
they've done stuff with like Crusher too that's shitty with Sub Rosa or whatever, but like,
Yeah.
Wow.
Again, Rick Berman,
terrible.
not a great guy and made a lot of bad choices in terms of like dealing with women in Star Trek and stuff. So thank God, that era is over. That part of that era, anyways, the 90s
yeah,
and 2000s.
yeah, really.
Yeah.
Totally unnecessary.
Um,
and there's supposedly 30 minutes cut out of this movie. Like that should have been some of the first shit to get cut out. It really doesn't.
There
do
was a lot of
anything.
cut out of this movie. It was
I would be
very much-
interested to know what it is.
I don't know.
very
all the
much
details,
re-edited in post and trying to save the movie, I guess, trying to make it a workable
Well, you
movie.
know who they should have got to do that? Stuart Baird.
Yeah.
he's a good
Hey,
editor.
man, can
He
you
edited
fix this?
Superman.
Fix this movie, not make this movie.
But only we had a
Right.
specialist. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
My theory is that Stuart Baird, his favorite scene to shoot was probably the dune buggy scene.
Yeah.
There's a
Probably
lot
had a
of
great time
angles
doing
of it, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not a Star
but-
Trek movie if we don't just go an hour outside of LA to the desert,
Yeah.
right.
It's mandatory.
Yeah. So
Sponsored by the
Picard is
National
on
Park.
this ship, the Scimitar, that is about to blow up. I guess he's sort of accepted that he's going to sacrifice himself to save the crew of the Enterprise. All of a sudden, Data shows up and is like, "Sorry, Captain." Puts this thing on him, transports him back to the Enterprise.
We get a
And the ship
Guardians
blows up.
too. We get a Yondu and a Peter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Big fans of Nemesis, apparently.
Yeah. So Picard shows back on the Enterprise and he's like, "Data, no, I'm so sad." And everyone's very sad because Data explodes.
Mm-hmm. And then
And they're all
B4 just sits
mourning,
there looking
and
at the
they-
wall.
Turn and they hear a big
Yes.
fart who says, "What's a Data?" They're like,
My
"B4."
My brother is dead?
Yeah. Why don't we just
What?
undercut this entire thing?
Yeah. And then obviously Picard, this is still weighing on him 20 years later because in season 1 of Picard, he's like still super broken up about Data sacrificing himself for him.
Right.
Sure.
Which is a whole
When-
other
yeah.
thing.
Whenever he
Uh,
would think about that in the show, like I know it's Nemesis, but I just kept thinking, oh, that's how First Contact ends. And I just kept thinking, oh, yes, First Contact is when Data dies.
Well, they
Well,
almost
again,
did do
in
it
season
first.
That's what I
one,
mean.
He
Yeah.
doesn't say the words like, and it was Shinzon who did that. And some old guy's like, "Oh yes, Shinzon."
They literally had to say the proper noun. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, Shinzon.
Yeah.
Remember when there was that clone of me
Remember-
that was the in
So-
charge of the Romulan?
Who's
What
got
year
clones
is it?
now? Riker has a
21,
random clone.
30, 50. But what,
Oh, yeah.
How old would Shinzon be if he was still alive? Margaret, 49? God, I miss Shinzon.
He asked his Romulan
Yeah.
wife,
Wow.
and she's like, "Yeah, that was a tumultuous period for us after Shinzon
Yeah.
took over. That wasn't really great."
Don't say my son's name. Like, oh shit,
Right.
Picard.
yeah, wild.
He tells his Romulan maid that he started dating at the end of season 2. This
No,
all.
don't tell me these things.
Yeah.
You're Romulan, right? You like this story. So I have a Romulan son who you remember how some of you are vampires?
Yeah. Remember when there was that government
Uh,
coup
yeah.
that happened? They
No,
killed the whole
I-
Senate. That was my
yeah,
son.
I'm
Of course,
sorry,
this
I
was
don't
before your
remember
whole
any of
planet blew up and all that
that.
stuff.
You have that
Yeah.
holiday. What's it called? It's called that's right,
Shinzon
Shinzon Day.
Yeah. She was like 10
That's
years
of course
old when that happened.
Named for my son.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Data sacrificed himself. Everyone's sad. Then we get one last scene where Picard is in his office talking to B4, and he's like, you'll never understand like what your brother meant. Like you're basically a piece of shit compared to Data.
He basically says, "Hey, B4, do you think we'll make another one of these?" And B4, like a magic 8 ball, is like, "Odds
Could be.
not in your favor."
No, but then he starts singing "Blue Skies,"
Yeah.
the song that Data was singing at the
That's
beginning of
right.
the movie, and
Yeah,
gives
That's
him a
right.
little
Season
hope.
3 of Picard.
And then we also find out, Riker is taking a promotion to become the captain of the Titan.
This
which, of
is the
course,
real setup, right? This is the real.
This is
fallout
the
of this
open-ended
film.
of like, if we do a 5th movie, Riker will be captain of the Titan, and it was continued in the books, the extended universe books, of which there are many. And then even in Picard season 3, the Titan is the ship that we see the most of in Picard season 3, and that's Riker's former command. So
Wow.
Yeah,
all
he
ties
gets
together.
to take that over again from Shaw. Yeah, so some of the stuff they could have done, they eventually did, and it was good. But this
Boy.
before we get into our quiz, it's just like, man, they had some good ideas, but it's just not it. It's just not it, Chief. Like,
Exactly. But again, I'll say my second favorite TNG movie after everything that I said about it, because
Why?
I'll take this, I'll take the edginess and early 2000s-ness of this over the blandness of Insurrection or Generations, because I just think those movies, they're just kind of boring. And this movie, at least, it was boring at times, but it was also had some interesting ideas that I liked. So
I just don't
put it
think
above those
either
two.
3 of these films are watchable. Honestly,
I only
again, it's not
care
a
about
high
First
bar.
Contact.
Yeah.
It's my second favorite TNG movie, but it's not a high bar, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. So this movie is my nemesis.
But how would you
yes.
rank, of the 4, how would you rank them? First Contact, number 1.
Yeah, and that's a great question because we're wrapping up here our thoughts on TNG. So again, if there's anything you guys want to say before we get into the quiz about like your long-standing relationships with Picard and these specific characters, I'll say, guys, they never became more than coworkers for me. I brought this up in the last episode. This is not my family. My family is a Scottish man who says that he's going to beam me up, or it's a cantankerous doctor who tells me that like things aren't looking good, Colin, and I go, that's great. I don't know. And if I had to rank these, I really came into these ones going like, this is the down period. This is the middle area between my 2 favorite time zones. Let's see if I can mine any new joy or happiness or content out of this. I got to say, I maybe came away with it with the opinion of like, oh, First Contact's not terrible. But again, my opinion really is that I'll say all 4 really aren't tremendously watchable. But I'll go First Contact, Generations, and then this is where it gets muddy and where it's like, do I concede to your argument, Jacob, or do I lean the other way? And I will take the blandness of Insurrection over this because I think this is just more of a sin on my senses where it's like watching and I'm like, oh, I don't really like how it looks. I don't really like the score. The editing's off. The screenplay's bad. No, I don't like
Jerry
any
Goldsmith.
of it. I don't like any of it in this one, dog. None of this one works. So how about you, Mike?
Yeah, I love Dune Buggies, so this is the best one, I think.
Okay, so number 1.
Yeah. No, it's
number 1 over the other Star Trek films you said.
Yeah,
over all of them. No, First Contact, Generations, I'm with you, and then Insurrection and Nemesis. At least Insurrection, it felt like a average episode of Star Trek Generation, but it felt like Star Trek Next Generation. This is just like a bad thing that makes me feel bad when I watch it.
That's fair. For me, very different take from Colin, because this is like between 87 when TNG starts and 2005 when Enterprise ends. That's my favorite era of Star Trek just in general. You had TNG, you had DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, you had some of the later OG movies, of course, and then you had the TNG movies. TNG movies, not my favorite, but I do like this as sort of a last vestige of this era. Because like after this, it's Kelvin timeline. It's very different. So this was like the last hurrah of like the TNG 90s era, the golden era of Star Trek, in my opinion. But I'll say this too: the TNG cast, also not my favorite cast, but the OG cast is not my favorite cast either. My family is Commander, soon to be Captain Sisko. It's
Mhm.
Major Kira.
Yeah.
It's Dr. Bashir.
Fuck yeah,
DS9.
stand up. You're wearing
is
a
my-
shirt right now, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Show that off to the YouTubers.
I think DS9, as far as the cast goes, is the strongest overall cast. And because TNG, it was so Picard and Data focused a lot of the times that some of the cast didn't get the most to do. Even though I do like all the cast members, I still would put DS9 a little higher.
Yeah, they should have had a DS9 movie. They they really missed an opportunity to do that. Than just rehash this. So there was ways to insert DS9 stuff into some of the other movies.
Well,
they missed out on,
so the fifth movie that they sort of left open-ended, it was going to have more Voyager and DS9 characters in it.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
Another Barkley cameo?
Right. So it was going to be, Riker, Captain Riker on the Titan, Picard on the Enterprise, Worf doing who knows what. And they were going to have DS9 characters. They were going to have Voyager characters. It was going to be great. But
did we have a plot at all of anything?
Not really. But
Okay.
unfortunately, this movie just did so badly at the box office that it just killed any hopes of that.
Right. They missed a huge opportunity to do something with Picard and Sisko because they don't like each other because of Wolf 359 and Locutus. But then also they both have dealings with the Kardashians. They could have had a mission where they have to bury the hatchet. I don't
That
like
would have
you
been
very
great.
much, Captain. Like
The way
Can I
Yeah.
pitch you guys something for our long history of watching all these?
Mhm,
You know what I
go
would
for
have
it.
done? My ultimate throw to, I would have brought V'ger back. I would have done the full history of Star Trek, the motion picture. I would have called it Star Trek, The Next Generation, the motion picture, 11 or 12 or whatever the fuck the number was.
So Colin, I don't know if I mentioned this before or not, but William Shatner did have this idea that V'ger was the original Borg, V'ger created the Borg or the Borg created V'ger or something like that. So it's going to tie back into the Borg. And I think he wrote, because Shatner wrote some Star Trek novels.
Yeah.
And I think one of his novels
So did
is
Chekhov.
about V'ger and the Borg. So that's kind of interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You could so here's how I would have flipped it and done his thing of, the Borg come to the Federation for help. And you have that boardroom scene of all those captains you just said, Janeway, Picard, Riker's in there too as a newly appointed captain who's like, can you believe I'm sitting in on the mission talks with my old crew over
Sulu.
here?
Sure.
Yeah. Oh my God, Mike, please. Being I can't go on the mission, but it
why?
reminds me of a
This is
time that's
dangerous.
V'ger was just fully set it up.
V'ger. Yeah.
And I wouldn't even have it that she's dangerous because remember, she did something with Ilya, so she learned love or something. What would be the results and payoff of the end of that film, truly in the Star Trek universe? Did she go on to make the Borg and did some sort of corruption form their evil nature, and maybe she's trying to wipe them out to correct that or something, and she's arguing to the Federation, no, what I'm doing is good or something. You're like, oh shit.
I mean, that doesn't sound worse than what they did with Picard season 1 and 2. So I'll take it.
There we go. There we
We
go.
are Borg.
This is my Legends book.
Right.
Yeah, with the way DS9 ended with Sisko, he sort of became a prophet to the.
That's true.
He was the messenger of the prophet, so he became like a spirit or whatever. So he wouldn't have been in it. But
I gotta
the
go.
DS9 characters, they
That's
could have brought
true.
back Major Kira.
Avery Brooks would have never come back for it anyways.
yeah.
But yes, please bring back all those characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have loved that.
Put O'Brien on the ship no matter
But it was
what.
basically, this was sort of the death knell of this. You know, and 3 years later, 2005, Enterprise ends, gets canceled in its 4th season, and that's it for this era of Star Trek. 4-year break. They're like, all right, what are we going to do? Let's get this young
Close the
guy,
book.
J.J. Abrams. He's going to reimagine the whole Trek universe. And that's what we'll get into next month.
Yeah.
But first,
It's
I think it's time for a little Wrath of Cobb.
I think you're right. Nice.
And you call this the Nema quiz?
I should
like
have,
that.
Yeah. Dun 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 dun.
We can just roll into it. That's a good comment. Nema
We're
quiz.
back. That's right, because it's
Absolutely.
Wrath of Cobb, the Nema quiz here on Normies Like Us. If you've listened to our past monthly run-alongs, Jacob does such a good job on taking us through these Star Trek episodes and then delights Mike and I with a quiz at the end.
I've done a quiz ever since the motion picture, the first movie we did.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if I should continue this into the Kelvin timeline, if there's enough trivia about those movies. I guess we'll find out, but I'm game to try, you know?
That's true. That's true.
So, I mean,
I don't think you will continue it, but I think an older version of you will come back and tell us that you should start making quizzes.
Oh, great. Yeah.
I know
An
that
alternate timeline version.
me would have
right.
never stopped making the quizzes, you know. I have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's
Colin Brooks is still alive? I'm like, no, get out of here, Jacob. Old Jacob, don't tell me this stuff. You're going to ruin it.
Yeah, right. And hey, enjoy the next 6 months, buddy. See you later.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, shit.
All right.
All right.
We'll have to get
Let's
future
into
Colin
it.
Brooks for a blood transfusion. Well, let's do that.
Exactly.
Sorry.
The echoes.
Yes. All right. Well,
All
we'll
right.
let you jump into it.
Star Trek Nemequiz, The Wrath of Cobb. Let's get into it. And you remember how this works. So, it's true or false. Hold up your fingers, 1 for true, 2 for false. Is that how it works?
If you're watching along at the YouTube links, which you should, Jacob does a good job making those as well, you'll see that, yes, Mike and I stay honest by revealing what our guess is with a 1 for true, 2 for false, and then we say them as well.
Yeah.
Out loud for the listeners. So, yeah.
All
If you-
right.
and you can sponsor this. We could have your logo on a little flip card. If you want to sponsor the quiz segment.
Cobb's Quiz brought to you by Lexus.
Brought to you
Quiz
by
that's almost over because
Staples.
we are almost at the end of our
No,
Trek
no,
voyage.
We'll get some Cobb's Quiz in
Yeah,
our
that's fine.
long
Brought to you by
teased
Applebee's.
whatever we're going to follow
Yeah.
this up with yet, which listeners,
I can't
we
wait.
don't even know yet.
But it will definitely not be Fast and the Furious. Anyway.
It might be.
Not at
It
all.
might be.
It might
That's
be,
true.
but it won't be. But it might be.
But it might be. I'd rather go to the mines of dilithium than revisit those. But let's do it.
Let's do it. First question now. Here we go. All right. Michael Dorn was very upset about Worf's role in this film. Is that true or false?
I'm ready.
Ready?
I'm locked in.
All
Lock
right.
it in. All right. 3, 2, 1, reveal.
Let's say true.
False.
Okay, we have a split.
That was true. I was trying to start with an easy
okay.
one. He was very upset because Worf gets nothing to fucking do in this movie.
My argument was, he's more upset than anyone else who also gets nothing to do. Like, what is he complaining
But Worf in
about?
particular, if you think about it, he just come off of DS9 where he became a main character in that show. And they're bringing me back to fucking stand in the background and have 2 lines in the movie.
But to me, that's what you get if you're show hopping. That shows
Yeah.
to me you're good enough to be an extra. Because it's like, oh, you just fucking love this shit. Get back there, you pig.
Yeah.
right. I'm
jeez.
sure they paid him okay,
Yeah. He gets a couple fire on them, Mr. Wolf. That's, he fucking presses the button. What the fuck else do you want to do on these movies?
But at this point in time, Worf had gone through so much on DS9. He became an ambassador for the Klingon Empire. He's above being the security
We
officer
hear about
at
the
this
great
point on
warriors of the Remans. He's not going to get in a left battle against 3 of those. There's
No.
never more than 2 of them fighting anybody ever. We don't get to
No.
see them
Yeah.
being warriors.
And I thought
Yeah.
Data was going to fight Ron Perlman. I did not think it was going to be
Riker.
Frakes.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, what are you
Wild.
going to do? All right. Next question.
Romulan
This
ale
is-
should be illegal.
It is.
They do say that.
I think the trade embargo was lifted at this point technically. But
yeah, we have to fact check that.
Mhm.
Irving Berlin. Ugh. All right. Next
Classic
question.
movie.
This is a good one. Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9. Jerry Ryan was offered a cameo in this movie before Kate Mulgrew, Admiral Catherine Janeway was. Is that true or false?
Locked in.
Locked in.
Lock it in. Lock it in. 3, 2, 1. Reveal.
True.
True. That was true. They wanted
Berman?
7. They didn't want fucking Janeway. They wanted 7 of 9.
Yeah.
Everyone's favorite Voyager character.
Right.
You
Unfortunately-
talked in the past about the animosity those two characters have for
Yes.
each other because one was so popular. That really fed to my answer on that one.
It's very
Mhm.
sad because, Kate Mulgrew and Jerry Ryan, they didn't get super along well. Oh, they didn't get along super well on the set of Voyager because Kate Mulgrew felt like Jerry Ryan came in and kind of stole the spotlight. She's the captain, right? She feels like she should be the star of the show. I think they did make up later, and they're
Right.
friends now. But
And to look at that too from like different lenses, it's like Kate Mulgrew's like the first female captain of a Star Trek series, leading the series, and then they bring in what is effectively like a sex appeal character, like for
the
ratings.
thing is with 7 of 9, she
like,
was a really good character. Like she
has a great arc,
yes, but
actually,
she is actually an interesting character, and her and Janeway's scenes are like the best part of Voyager, where they kind of their relationship in the show is actually really interesting.
Look, it's the most Star Trek thing that can happen to you. You're the character who's the lead because you think you're the captain, and the interesting science officer upstages you and becomes more popular.
Yeah.
Damn, that's the fate. Wow.
So, I mean,
Good
obviously
catch.
the event did get Jerry Ryan back for Picard, and she's a big part of that show. But yeah, they did ask her before Kate Mulgrew. She couldn't do it because she had just started a role on Boston Public at the time. And you know, she was doing TV. She can do fucking Star Trek Nemesis.
Yeah, right.
But she did obviously come back again for Picard.
Great.
So, all right, next question. Jonathan Frakes was asked to direct, but he declined. Is that true or false?
I'm ready.
Locked in.
Lock it in. 3, 2, 1, reveal.
No way.
That was false. You got it
right.
right. Good job. I was trying to trick you, but no, he wasn't asked to direct. For some, you know, like I said, they wanted to go in a different direction, get some new blood, even though he did the 2 previous movies. And he said that if he was asked, he would have accepted and he would have done it, but they didn't ask.
Of course.
And LeVar Burton
and again,
too
he
had
was
done episodes here and there. Like he could have been a guy.
Yeah, or Brent Spiner, story credit, right?
Oh, really? You don't want number one's hand on this thing? Hey, Jerry, my agent? Yeah. Show me the script for Time Stoppers one more time.
Yeah. You know what?
And apparently,
I'll
you know,
sign
on
that
set,
Stopper.
Stuart Baird.
Clock Stoppers, sorry.
Stuart Baird
Respect.
did like say like, oh, I made a conscious decision not to ask him for any advice or anything, and he was busy on Clock Stoppers, so it just worked better for everyone this way.
Good.
I was like,
I'm
that's
glad.
interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So there you go. Okay, next question. Nicholas Meyer, director of Wrath of Khan and The Undiscovered Country, was
Interesting.
approached to direct this before Stuart Baird. Is that true or false?
I'm locked in, but I'm not confident.
I'm locked in.
Lock it in. Lock it in. 3, 2, 1. Reveal.
I said false.
True.
So we have a split.
We have a split. That was true. That is
Absolutely.
true.
Colin ties it up.
Absolutely.
They said Nicholas Meyer,
was.
you came back before to do Undiscovered Country. You made the last OG movie. Do you want to come back and do this one? And he was considering it, but he said he would only do it if he could do a rewrite of the script. But Rick Berman had already promised John Logan full control over the script, so they couldn't do that. So he said, nah. So
I imagine
he read the script and he was like, I'm not directing this shit. Let me rewrite it. Maybe.
Yeah.
But what you just said, John Logan did have full control of this screenplay?
Yes. It seemed like he had more control than Stuart Baird.
Oh. Well, you figure
which
like
is weird, but they got Stuart Baird to do the action. Yeah.
Right, but if you just say, hey, dude, you know that guy who directed Wrath of Khan? You know, he wants to work on the script with you, but would you like to work with that guy? I'd be like, yeah, let's make a better movie.
Oh,
right.
Thank God. Somebody who knows Star
What
Trek
they're
is here,
doing.
is what I would have
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
The original guy
We
that they
lucked
brought
out.
in to save the franchise after the motion picture, right?
Yeah. For
And
not
then brought him
knowing
back
it.
again.
No, I really want to
after
keep my
Shatner's disaster. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just want the most back end points of this $60 million box office flop.
Yeah,
Right.
basically.
That's
Right.
all you're protecting is your back end, and
Yeah.
there's not
And
even
this is
one
just
because the movie
crazy that
sucks.
John Logan going from a Oscar nominated Gladiator to this. Just
Both
blows
with
my mind.
Roman kind of terminology and politics.
Maybe
That's
that's
true.
why. Maybe that's why he came on, Mike.
Yeah, Rome, huh?
What's
Yeah.
my take? What if there's space gladiators?
Right.
No,
What if
John,
Russell Crowe's in
that
it?
can't
Well,
be
what?
it.
It's a similar origin story though, because we do have somebody who is like the lower caste, like slave class gladiator versus mining,
Yeah.
and
Fights
rising
to the
up
top. Yeah.
to look
Yeah.
eye to eye with the leadership. Look at that.
Sure.
Anyway.
Fight him in a revolution.
All right, next question. So what's the score? That's
3 to 3.
We're 4
We're
questions
tied
in.
up 3 to 3.
3. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Next question. Stuart Baird, the director of this movie, was a huge Star Trek fan beforehand. I might have already tipped my hand on this one, but
Yeah, I'm ready.
was that true or false?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
All right.
All right. 3, 2, 1, reveal.
False.
True.
That was false. That was false. He had
I
reportedly never watched TNG, an episode of TNG, even before shooting this, even to get familiar with the characters or their relationships.
Oh.
He had no idea what was going on. Levar Burton, Jonathan Frakes, Marina Sirtis all have spoken unfavorably about working with him.
Jeez.
He couldn't remember cast members' names, and he thought LeVar Burton was an alien instead of a human with prosthetic eyes. So,
Well, look,
Yeah.
okay, I do remember now that you said that. But look, I remembered before that we were saying, he didn't fresh blood or whatever. Maybe necessarily he didn't have the strongest connection to this. But I also saw he gave himself a cameo as the voice of the Scimitar's computer. That to me screams as a guy who's like, I got to put myself in there. Like, I love Star Trek, but no, I guess not.
Apparently, he was not a Star Trek
faster
guy.
if I record it.
John Logan
Probably.
was a Star Trek fan beforehand, but Stuart Baird was not. So,
Got it.
there you
Okay.
go.
Well, I pulled ahead by one.
Yeah. Next question.
Getting away with it, Mike.
This is a good one. All right.
Thrilling.
Jonathan Frakes' back hair was digitally removed in his love scene with Marina Sirtis. Is that
Back
true or
hair?
false?
Wow.
His back hair was digitally removed.
Oh man, I'm locked in.
I'm locked in. Just from the framing of the question, I guess. Yeah.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
True.
Must be
please.
true.
That
I
is
hope.
true.
That's
He
incredible.
refused to shave his back for this scene, so they digitally removed it in post. Why?
I don't
Why
know
couldn't
that
he
they
not have
needed
back
to.
hair? I don't know.
I don't know
Yeah.
about
However
any
much
of
that costs them, you just say, "We'll give you half of that cash, Jonathan. We'll just give
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
$1,000 right now, cash." To
And
shave
by the
it.
way, speaking about effects, I think it's funny because if this movie was made today, they probably would have just done some like fucking de-aging on Picard on Patrick Stewart and had him play a young Shinzon, right?
man.
Parent Trap.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine the world where, fucking Robert Downey Jr. gets to play the villain that is a young I mean, it's Gemini Man. That's great.
Mhm.
That's fucking
Yeah.
great, dude.
Wild.
Well, I like that, they gave Tom Hardy a chance instead of using this
Yeah.
de-aging.
Oh, yeah,
but,
yeah. Much better.
yeah. But if they had the technology then, they probably would have done it.
Oh yeah. The
Um,
Indiana Jones trailer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay tuned, normies.
Stay tuned. All right, next question. Okay, here we go. Michelle Forbes, Ro Laren, Ensign Ro. She makes a cameo appearance in the beginning wedding scene. Is that true or false?
It's a complete guess.
Think
Locked
about
in.
it. You had Guinan in there, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did notice
Wesley
that.
too. I mean,
Wesley.
Yeah, that's
Sheesh.
funny.
I'm
All
locked
right,
in.
lock it in. 3, 2, 1, reveal.
False.
False.
For me.
That is false. Good job, guys.
All right.
There's a
But
there's a
why?
long-standing rumor that she was in it because
Mm.
in the shot of Guinan when Picard's giving the speech, there's like a woman behind her that kind of looks like Ro Laren. So people are like, that's fucking Ro Laren. But it's not.
Right.
It's not Michelle Forbes. So it's
No.
not
We
true.
could have had an opportunity too by the end of this movie to bring back our Tasha Yar Romulan
Yeah.
character, with that whole subplot, unless she was in a different universe, right?
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that actually because
No way. Oh,
the
I'm
next
sorry.
question.
Okay,
okay.
ask the question
Um,
then. Yeah.
Next question. Denise Crosby discussed the possibility of returning for this movie with Rick Berman. Is that true or false?
Well, now based off my crackpot, I know what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
Boy, in this guy's relationship with women, was he on good grounds with one of them? That's a great
Well,
question.
she left after one season, but not due to him, as far as I know.
Right,
so
right.
she escaped him. All right,
Yeah.
I'm locked in.
yep.
All right, 3, 2, 1, reveal.
I'm gonna say true.
That is true. So
Okay.
Denise Crosby, obviously, she played Tasha Yar, and she also came back as the Romulan character Sela, who we find out that is like Tasha Yar's daughter. I don't remember how that
What?
worked, but
Yeah.
do you remember that, Mike?
No, it's not like cloning, but it's some sort of. It's not so dissimilar as the plot mechanism for this movie. I don't know the
Yeah.
exact detail, but yeah, she does come back
But she
as
comes
like.
back as a Romulan villain who's
Yeah.
like,
You said
"I'm
her name is
Sela."
Shinza, huh? Interesting. Wow.
Yeah,
Shinza.
Shinza.
See, Sela, Shinza.
So they did talk about bringing Sela back, but they couldn't figure out how to make it work with the story, which doesn't make sense because she easily could have been that female Romulan
There's a
general
thousand
or
ways
whatever
you
that
could have
was
made
like.
it work. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
it's like, hey, I don't
It's
like
the
what Shinzon's up
you
to.
just
yeah.
say a bunch of Romulan diplomats were killed. We have to send an emissary or embassy, representative to your ship to accompany on this mission. Oh, it's someone you happen to have a past with.
And she was in that previous regime that got overthrown, so she would have a motivation to like help Picard in this situation
Don't
too.
trust
It almost
Shinzon.
makes too much sense if you think
Yeah, they're not doing things that make sense in
But,
these movies. We've established that, but
By the way,
Yeah.
did you see the half of us that are vampires?
yeah,
I just love this idea that the Romulans keep bringing up. They're like, some of us are spooky, right?
that's one of my
Yeah.
favorite thing about
Well,
Romulans from this. Is
like,
now that I know
it's
half of them are
like-
vampires.
It's just
And they're
like
also
if,
like
if,
a distant cousin of the Vulcans too.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
like, are
fine,
the Remans
but
also
Jacob,
related to
if
the Vulcans?
you showed me one of your cousins and you were like, this cousin has no emotions.
This is
By
my
the way,
cousin
this cousin
Nosferatu.
is a vampire.
Right.
I'd
Yeah.
be like, well, that's one of them
This
is more
is
interesting than
My
the other.
cousin Orlok, right?
Yeah.
Count
Yes,
Orlok.
Count Orlok.
Yes, Praetor
Um,
Orlok.
All right, what's the current score?
Right now it is. It looks like 6 to. How many questions have we had?
I have one
I
more
think
question.
7-6. You got to
7
beat
to
me
6.
by one.
I'm up
Mike.
by one.
I have
right
one
now,
question with a special bonus question, an extra
Okay.
credit, if you will.
Here's how I'm gonna get you.
Yeah. You're gonna
Yeah.
give me that pointy part of the ship.
So here we go.
Okay.
So Star Trek Nemesis is the only Star Trek film to not finish #1 at the box office for its opening weekend. Is
The
that true
only
or
one to
false?
not finish #1. This definitely didn't, because I do know that like Two Towers and
This
shit was out.
yeah.
But is it the
So let me
only
set the
one?
scene for
I
you.
love that,
Holiday
Mike.
season
Oh, please tell me, guys.
2002.
Set the
It's
Why
table.
was I
competing with-
seeing this? Yes.
It's competing with Lord of the Rings: Two Towers. It's competing with Harry Potter and the Chamber of the Secrets and Die Another Day, the James Bond movie.
Wow.
All big
But I
hits.
saw all those in theaters, and I think I saw Two Towers twice. There's no way that's true. And I saw this film. That's too many movies.
Not opening
wild.
weekend, maybe. Wild. Okay.
I don't know.
But so is this the first one
And is it
of
the
TNG
only
or
one?
all of them?
Every Star Trek movie.
There's
To
some
not
other
open
TNG
#1.
ones where I think
I'm
don't
ready.
know.
Yeah.
So this is interesting.
We'll
Is that
see.
true or false? 3, 2, 1. You guys locked in?
Yeah,
Sorry.
locked
I'm locked in.
3, 2, 1. Reveal.
I said
False.
false. It can't be.
Wow. You both said false. It's true.
What?
Oh my god.
true.
Insurrection
It's not
finished
only-
#1?
Yep.
Yeah, that
At least
that
its
blows
first
my mind
weekend.
more than this one bombing.
But it's
Wow.
the lowest grossing Star Trek of all time. Only, or I don't know if it's the lowest grossing because actually Final Frontier, which was Shatner's directorial, #5 in the OG movies, made 60 million. So I think that was actually the lowest grossing one. But this was the
Sure.
only one to not finish #1 its first weekend.
Adjusted for
and-
inflation, you probably can make
Yeah.
that
Well,
argument.
yeah,
but
60
anyway,
million was worth a lot more in the 70s or in the 80s than it was in the 2000s
late
for sure.
90s or 2000s anyway. Yeah.
But again, just think 67 million worldwide on a $60 million budget. Insurrection made 117 million worldwide. So it's literally basically half of Insurrection's box office. That's an
Jeez.
insane drop off.
Yeah,
Um,
that is.
Franchise
yeah.
fatigue. Ant-Man.
and think about how much
Ant-Man.
Two Towers made in the
Yeah.
same season. Two Towers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, that's a very interesting question. Where I'll say this off pod, because we brought this up in the last Marvel movie that we covered, but off pod, we still continue to text each other. How many Marvel movies are there? We did finally get like a tally of like 42 or some absurd number like that.
Yeah.
But at this age and at this time, like imagining my father sitting down and being like, oh, the 11th Star Trek movie, not a chance. The culture was just 100% different. There's not
And
a
it's-
chance people were going to this thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's really crazy how much the Abrams movie rejuvenated the franchise. Because if you look at how much that movie made, it's a huge jump.
It
made
really
like
is the
$300
power
million.
of reboots. Like when
Yeah.
when producers and studio heads bring those up and fans roll their eyes, you really do underestimate the power of a new, fresh jumping on point for new fans and a fresh take of old material.
Right.
Yeah.
So I am excited to talk about that next month.
Yeah.
But for extra credit, So it did not finish number one its opening weekend. Only Star Trek movie to ever do that. Which movie did it lose to? And I'll say this. The three that I mentioned, Two Towers, Chamber of Secrets, Die Another Day, it's not any of those. Those all came out different weekends around the same time.
Those are just still in the box office run.
Yeah.
Okay,
Gotcha.
yeah.
So this is a fresh, this film also opened this weekend against Nemesis.
Yes.
Do you know?
It's the
Okay.
movie that opened the same weekend as Nemesis and
Wow.
came in number one.
So
Nemesis came in
what
number two.
else was I seeing this
2002
weekend?
holiday season.
Mike, this
I don't
is
know if
too
you'll be able to
many
get
movies.
it. It's when I say it, you're gonna be like, "What? Really? That movie?
Really?
So I don't know if you're gonna get it.
Maybe
but if you can,
something kid oriented.
Yeah.
Maybe something like boy.
I
Oh,
don't know.
maybe like a Disney movie. I'm gonna throw it out to what's it like a 2000s, like an early Pixar. Is this like a Toy Story?
Toy Story 2.
No,
Ah, jeez,
not
I got
a Pixar.
Yeah, I'm out.
I don't think you're gonna be able to get
Can
it.
you give us a studio?
Should I just say it? Let me see.
Depends on how
Oh,
many
this
clues
is
you want to give
interesting.
us.
Yeah,
yeah.
if it's easier off.
I
the
don't even
studio,
know
that's
the studio.
Or an actor, maybe.
Okay.
That's the easy way. But
I'm gonna look it up because I don't even
Definitely.
know the studio. That
this is
made
for
it.
all this for all the marbles, man.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Right,
Well, this is
right.
to tie it for me, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. It's coming to
So this was made by Sony Pictures, or distributed by Sony
That does
Pictures.
not help. No.
I'll say this, and this is probably just going to make it more confusing because I didn't even know this.
incredible.
It's based on a story by John Hughes, and I didn't know that.
Based on a story by John.
Based on a story
Hughes.
by John Hughes. I'll tell you the director's
Hey,
name.
can
'cause
I-
it's not
can
going to
I-
help you.
Can I
Yeah,
guess real
great.
quick?
Go
Yeah.
for it.
Is this the film with Drillbit Taylor?
No.
Oh, thank
Oh, okay.
God. Okay.
This movie
I
was
got-
directed by a man named Wayne Wang.
No, it wasn't.
Jeez, yeah, there's.
It 100%.
You can't watch
was
his
not.
movies in theaters. I know
Wayne
Wayne
Wang.
Wang's work.
Yeah.
He directed
Yeah,
the
I'm
Joy
familiar
Luck-
with Wayne Wang. He did not direct this.
They
Sir.
do
That's
not-
probably a
yeah.
different Wayne Wang you're thinking of.
Right. I
Uh,
got nothing, Colin.
Yeah,
I
you're
don't
not
know.
going to be able to get
Yeah,
it's-
I lose.
I'll say it's kind of
Tell
would
me.
be considered a chick flick. If I give you the main
Oh,
actress, it might spur something.
Okay,
What's the-
Mike's
should
got
I?
it here.
What's that really shitty Christmas movie with Andrew
I don't
Lincoln?
think
A John Hughes chick
Oh,
flick Christmas movie?
Is it-
I know what
yeah,
you're
he holds
talking
up the
about.
signs. He's like
yeah.
a homewrecker. Yeah, I can't
And
remember
with,
the name of it.
Colin
Love
Firth.
Actually.
Oh, Love Actually.
Love
Love Actually. Yeah.
It's not
No.
Love Actually.
Okay, I'm done then.
The
No.
star of this movie is Jennifer Lopez. Does that
Made Manhattan.
This is
spur anything?
this is getting
That's
so
right.
much more
Made
confusing.
in
I
Manhattan.
got it.
No, John Hughes did not write the story for
That's
Made
what it
in
says.
Manhattan.
It's
what are you
based on a
talking
story by
about?
John Hughes. Made in
Ben
No, it is
Manhattan.
Affleck
a
wrote
story
that.
that he told someone about wanting to have sex with his maid. Yeah,
Damn.
absolutely. Sure, great.
Damn.
Of course, that
Made
movie that we all
Manhattan.
know about Jennifer Lopez playing a maid in Manhattan, I would assume.
Mhm.
Rafe Fiennes, Natasha Richardson, Stanley
that can't be
Tucci.
right. That's
Bob
not
Hoskins.
true. None of that's true. You're making all this
Made
up.
in Manhattan did better than Nemesis. That is great.
Good.
Came out the same weekend as Star Trek Nemesis
A
and beat it
lesson
at the
this
box
franchise
office.
needs to learn. You never underestimate Jenny from the block.
Uh-huh.
She's
right.
always
Exactly.
out there.
Surprised there wasn't
Mhm.
Jeejley, you know?
Jeejly. Well, what a
Jeejly.
quiz.
Great work as usual.
That was the quiz, the Wrath of
Thank
Khan
you.
quiz.
The echo is,
And
overshadowed
so
you
the
guys-
voice.
Mike got
Are-
the extra credit, so does that give him, or who won the...
No,
I
but
won
you
it.
already
I
had-
won it,
Mike-
and I
Mike-
got the extra credit.
Mike
yeah.
destroyed us. Congratulations, sir.
Yeah, I just drove the knife in further. So thank you.
So
I'm
proud of
honored
you.
to have
Thank you.
Now,
taken over.
let me ask you too. Does it bum you out to see this be the end? Or you just fully switch to the mode of, no, Picard is a fitting end. You're happy with what you've been given now.
Good question.
That is a good question, because the first two seasons of Picard, I didn't, obviously we spoke about it sort of at length, but not a huge fan of them. But eventually it did get sort of the wrap up of TNG that we needed, which was season 3. So I
Mhm.
think that does put a nice dot on it. Not that I think it's a perfect season or anything, but it is definitely better than this movie.
It was much needed to have season 3 of Picard actually accomplish what it did, because like at least the TOS cast, like they did have a good, I think, last ride, you know, and their last feature length solo. I think that was enough. But this
And the whole thing was
it's just a limp noodle, you know.
Yeah. And season 1 and 2 of Picard, they were like specifically not trying to make a TNG reunion. They're like, it's going to be Picard and a bunch of new characters, and everyone's going to love it. And nobody loved it.
It's
Again, it's
giving Vin
Patrick
Diesel.
Stewart's idea, right?
Yeah,
I'll come
I
back,
just want to
but
be
it's
the
got to be something
focus of
totally
everything.
different.
People
Yeah.
tell me I have terrible instincts. Yes,
I know
you
I'm
do.
80 years old now, but I want to do
I'm
action.
high most of the time on THC, you see, because of my arthritis. Yes. No. Sir Patrick, we know.
I prefer the characters you're portraying than you, the person, and the creative decisions you want to make.
I'm sure he's a great person.
Have you met my
Yeah.
20-year-old wife? Yeah. Yes, we have. She's great. She's fantastic.
Ian McKellen was my best man.
He's my
Have you
lovable
seen
friend.
Lord of the Rings?
Played Magneto, you see.
And I played Charles Xavier. Your best friends. Yeah.
Mike,
right.
can I say real quick? You added Dom to the end of the last podcast.
Oh, yeah.
As the voice
forgot I
replacing
did that.
Gandalf.
Yeah.
It made me so happy. Great work, Dom.
Thanks,
I love
thanks.
anytime you throw these voices on
I'm
there.
glad that he, was able to call
Glad
in
he was
and
able to
record
show
that
up.
for us.
Maybe Sir Patrick takes us
Anything
away
for
on
family.
this one to
Who
say
knows?
goodbye. Who knows?
Well, as we get into our last thoughts
Yes.
transition here, I do want to say, we have Shinzon, we have Picard, and as you're saying, he's his own worst enemy. And this is 2002, and it just reminds me of the song that I'm now going to play, 1999's Lit, My Own Worst Enemy. It's that kind of era, that kind of movie. Goofy Goobers.
Yeah.
We'll catch you on the next side.
That's right. We're back. We're wrapping up here on Normies Like Us, where we're giving our final thoughts on Star Trek Nemesis. And we thank you again one more time, Normies, for taking this Star Trek journey along with us.
It's been a long journey, been a fun journey, a rewarding journey, I would say.
A long
And,
road from there to here.
It's been more than a year since we started doing these treks, which is crazy to think about. And we still have at least 3 more, right? With the Kelvin universe, the new era that we're moving into. I'm excited to get into it. Colin, I know you like these movies. So that'll be coming next month.
Coming from where we've kind of experienced all these too, and like now we have point of reference, like more fresh for the TOS movies in that arc and TNG to restart the Kelvin movies, which I haven't seen them in.
Yeah.
Like I've only saw Star Trek Beyond once in theaters. I haven't really rewatched the other ones since they've come out.
Right.
I remember enjoying them, so it's going to be interesting to go back into those
And gaining a new appreciation for those characters, Kirk and
Mhm.
Spock and Bones and all
and
our
any
favorites.
like false starts or ideas that they had that they didn't flesh out that they take another run at, like see if there's stuff that maybe I didn't even realize was a reference, etc. Right, just being more familiar with these, so that'll be
What
cool.
if
I'm
Kirk
looking
was
forward to it.
green this time? Yeah, let's make Kirk green. Maybe this is a question better suited for when we're in that timeline and talking about those things, but I'll ask you guys now because it is these characters. Do you think we'll ever see a Kelvin version of Picard or this cast or a rebooted version of this cast?
That's a good question because, and I do want to talk about the future of this franchise in the next month, because there has long been a 4th Kelvin movie in the works that's at various stages of development. They almost went into production in spring of 2022 with Matt Shackman directing, who did WandaVision.
Oh, wow.
Then he left to do the Fantastic Four movie that they're making. So now it's sort of a movie that has no director. I read an interview with Chris Pine actually earlier today when I was doing research. And Chris Pine recently just said, like, yeah, they don't really tell me anything. Like, actors are pretty much the last people to know what's going on. Like, I'd love to make another one. I love making Star Trek movies. And he also said, like, the problem is, like, now it's got to make, like, they expect these movies to make Marvel money. And if it doesn't make Marvel money, then it's considered a failure. And it's like, he just wants to make movies for the Star Trek fan base and make it like a mid-level budget. and make a modest success. It doesn't have to be a huge blockbuster.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, Jacob, you're telling me a franchise starring Chris Pine doesn't have to be a blockbuster to get more sequels? I hope not.
I hope.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Again, that was a great movie, but didn't make Marvel money, and therefore this D&D is a failure. I hope that's not what we're seeing. I want sequels for that. It will be interesting because coming out of all these 10 movies, I said I think TOS functions better on the big screen. I think TNG functions better on the small screen, full stop. Then it's like, do these ever need to be a blockbuster? And right now I would say no, but flash forward to when the first Kelvin movie comes out and I'm like, damn, maybe they can be, because that's, a fun ride. So we'll see where we go.
And again, these movies did well, at least the first two. Beyond may have been, again, disappointing for what they were expecting, but like, it shouldn't have to make like $500 million. Like $150 million for what, Star Trek Beyond is, like, should be enough. Like,
make some mid-budget itself.
Yeah.
Right.
And then like Tarantino was like working on a Star Trek pitch for a while that he wanted to make.
Maybe had gangsters in it.
Yeah, it was going to be this crazy fucking space adventure, yeah. Very Tarantino.
So that's interesting, but it seems like the fourth movie is very much up in the air, but not completely dead yet. Who knows? But I'm excited for the next 3 months to talk about that, and then we'll figure out what we do.
Well, I would like to see, I don't know, name any actor play Picard in that fourth movie. A super young
Tom Hardy.
Just get Tom Hardy to do it.
Tom Hardy, and he says, "I hope they never, steal some of my blood to make Shinzon."
They redo this, and they get a Shinzon with another Timothy Chalamet playing Tom Hardy.
Hey, your name's Captain Kirk. Hey, did I ever tell you if I ever had a kid, I'd name him Shinzon?
Yeah. Oh my god.
That is a good question though. Like, Kelvin time, is there a Kelvin timeline Picard? Who knows? Like,
right.
And the timeline gets super muddy and confusing because they do reference events that happen in these movies in the Picard show, like the Romulan homeworld being blown up and that kind of thing. So it's unclear how that works. Maybe rewatching these movies, maybe it'll clear it up a little for me.
Wait, I see what you're saying. Whoa, that's really wild. Okay. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. Because that's like the event that causes two timelines or something. And then Nimoy obviously is the comes
Spock
back
Prime.
as old Spock, so it's a little confusing,
and we have a different Kirk in Strange New Worlds, which will be back June 15th. So we're gonna get some of like my favorite modern Trek very soon as well. So a lot of things going on in the Trek world. So one era ends, another one begins, and life goes on.
But we do have to say goodbye to the golden era of the 90s, to TNG, our favorite characters, Geordi, Worf, Data, Dr. Crusher, all our favorites.
Miles O'Brien.
He would have been back if they did the fifth movie for sure.
Yeah,
because he was a DS9 guy too.
He's Voyager. He saved Voyager. Okay, just never forget that.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's Star Trek Nemesis. Great movie. I think we all agree.
Right. 5-star recommend.
Watch it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pay for it if you don't have it. Donate money if you can watch it for free anyway. Let Paramount know you love this thing.
But no, again, it is a bad movie. I don't think, but it does have some interesting ideas, some good scenes that I like. It's more watchable for most of it than Insurrection to me. So, and I love Tom Hardy. So seeing a nice Tom Hardy villain, it was enough to keep me engaged for most of it. I did lose interest in the last third of it because it does become kind of not that interesting. But there you go.
There we go. Yeah, I'll just piggyback and say agree. That's my final thought.
I think what maybe hurts this movie even more is this modern streaming era where you can literally choose anything else. This is a fun experiment. I love franchises. I love films in series where you can watch progressions and pick up little storylines and connections and go it's interesting that theme was in that one and there's a similar one in this one. And I think in the era that we grew up in, even though this was not my experience, I did not own these films on DVD, but that little box set where you have those really thin DVDs that they used to do when you had a million movies together. And I think if you had every Star Trek film pre-Kelvin and my brother and I were going up there getting them all in this imaginary universe, I think eventually at least 2 or 3 times we would be like, you know what one we haven't watched in a while? The fucking clone one. Do you remember that one? And I think it would have gotten a heavier rotation opposed to literally me going like, Apple TV, Star Trek Nemesis. Okay, no, it pulled up every other Star Trek. Okay, let me scroll down. Well, these are Paramount films, so I'll go to Paramount Plus. Oh, they're not on Paramount Plus. Okay,
not anymore. Now they're on
HBO Max.
Okay, so,
wait.
so it's on HBO Max.
It's Max, where you go to get your HBO.
Making me re-download a new app to watch this. Like literally, the journey that I went on to watch this film. There were about 4 or 5 times where I was like, do I just text that maybe I'm not on this episode this week?
Yeah,
but,
man.
I just don't want to watch this movie. So I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Get ready because I think the Kelvin movies are on Netflix now. I don't know. They move around different streaming services. I don't understand.
Now those are Blu-ray gets for Colin. Colin's got all those on physical media. If anybody needs to borrow on babies, because those are films worth watching.
I think
I'm not positive this one was
Blu-ray at my house, which I don't think I do.
Interesting, fascinating.
We live in a brave new world.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say skip this one. I do not recommend watching this film, honestly. I think if you've got more to do, was this film 2 hours as well?
Yeah, I think so. It's pretty long because after an hour, it's like
long.
There's still an hour left.
Yeah, how is that?
But again,
true?
to me, it's more watchable than Insurrection, though. So
I don't know.
But skip both of them. Just watch First Contact.
Yeah,
pretty much. Watch Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2 and First Contact. Just do that.
Yes.
You guys keep saying that.
There you go.
All right. That's the final word. Word is law. Word is bond. We have the only right opinion. Don't give me your differing opinion on Twitter. Okay, we'll reject that.
No.
We are correct.
That's right.
No. Let us know what you think, obviously. What do you think about this movie? And appreciate going on the journey with us once again.
Yeah, hashtag Normie Nation. I'm throwing that out because
Normie Nation, dude.
And shout out to our listener, Matt, who put that out, which is the greatest.
Right.
But, he's the president of Normie Nation.
Idea.
Shout out to Normie Nation right now. We're going to say, like, subscribe, review, all that good stuff. It really helps out the podcast. You can find it anywhere, do that anywhere. And of course, watch these YouTube videos. I'll shout out specifically, watch these Star Trek ones when Jacob puts them out, because of course you can watch along for the quiz.
That's right.
The wrath.
Well, thanks, Normies. I've been your captain. Captain Jean-Luc Picab. I'll go first this time. Kind of change up the order, I guess.
Sounds good. There's been a coup in the Romulan Senate.
You went before me, Jacob.
Oh, no.
Why?
Well, I've had a...
But why?
but why? But why? Okay, I got nothing. I'm just going to be Romulan Perlman.
Romulan
Perlman. Yeah,
Love
Romulan.
Him and Linda Hamilton running around in that sewer. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.